Hello and welcome to Goodwood Festival of Speed 2021, a stunning celebration of all things motorsport. And quite possibly, Johnny, the perfect precursor for Silverstone. It's such a great warm-up for the British Grand Prix. Everyone's in such great spirits. Amazing to see so many fans back here. It's a good feeling, isn't it? It is a good feeling. And it's always, to be honest, always a good feeling coming here. But I think especially to the build-up, the British Grand Prix. But it's seeing all these fans here from young to old, and that's what's lovely, because you're seeing sort of the next generation actually sort of getting into motorsport from an early age. So it's great from that perspective, but of course build up Silverstone, another great event coming our way. It is so inclusive and accessible. I mean, if you just look around you, as you say, people of all ages, within touching distance, COVID safe of course, of the pinnacle of motorsport, but from every different era. I mean, it's an education for many young children growing up to see the cars people like you used to drive. Yes, and even that long ago. And this is part of this education. When I am meeting these youngsters, they say, yes, he won the British Grand Prix. And they go, really? They look at me and they look up and down and go, no, it can't be. And you're busy slipping their dad a fiver. Yeah. But the great thing, you're right, is when everything's back to normal, it's how close they can get to the drivers. But the drivers are willing to mix it with them at the same time. The young drivers we got in Formula One, but of course the older generation at the same time. So it's brilliant to have that opportunity to get that close. And Lord March has done a magnificent job of making everyone feel included, but to keep it safe, because it's been difficult times for everyone. I mean, how much of a feat was it just to get this event on, do you think? Well, I think massive, but I think it's like anything. He's always very, very, very much worked in an ethos that, you know, this event is a very important thing for motorsport, but for the car industry at the same time. And I think the ability that he's been able to put on the results since 1993, the first time I actually come here when I was driving for Lotus, and of course still going to Tate, still as strong, still as exclusive as always, and I think that always makes it very special. Plus, all the drivers that come here thoroughly enjoy it and always want to come back. You can't keep them away, can you? I mean, we've seen Lando. Daniel was here yesterday. They're so desperate to get involved because they have an appreciation as well for everything that's gone before them. Yes, and I think that is the cool thing about this event. I remember Valentino Rossi coming here a couple of years ago, and he drove actually my 24-hour Mazda that we won up the hill at the same time. So even that sort of ability for someone like him to come from the motorbike world but want to drive up this hill in a given car, but of course that Mazda that won, as I said, in 91, it's just fantastic to see. I mean, there is something for everyone. It's accessible, but it feels intimate. There's a real kind of festival vibe, but hay bales everywhere and everyone just chilling out on a perfect way to spend a family Sunday, isn't it? It is, and it's so easy to get around. You know, you get this side of where all the sort of the paddocks are. There's a bridge just down the road. You can get over into the middle where generally all the manufacturers are and little shops that are there at the same time, and that just makes it that much more special. Plus, there's a bit of sun coming down on us as well, which is lovely. It is doing its best to burst through. We're very grateful for that indeed. Okay, well, this is a unique celebration of all things 2 and 4 wheels, and Karun has taken a closer look at the history of the Festival of Speed.
The Festival of Speed celebrates the history of motorsport, but the event itself has a rich history going back nearly 30 years. The Goodwood race circuit on the edge of the Goodwood estate was a popular race venue in the 1950s and 1960s, hosting non-championship F1 races and international sports car races. But a serious accident for Stirling Moss in 1962 highlighted that cars were becoming too fast for Goodwood's layout. Reluctant to modify the track, the Duke closed it to competition in 1966. While still used for testing, it wasn't until the 11th Duke, Charles March, returned to the estate that the new era for Goodwood began.
Well, the Festival of Speed all started because we couldn't get permission to open the motor circuit as quickly as we'd hoped. So I came back to live at Goodwood in about 92. But I wanted to see, in the meantime, if there was some way perhaps of checking how people still felt about Goodwood, whether it still lived in people's hearts and minds as the sort of soul of British motorsport.
I received a call from Lord March. He said, "John, would you come down and talk to me?" And he said, "I want to open the hill up again. I want to make an event. What do you think?" So I said, "Well, why not?" He said, well, I'm speaking to Sterling as well.
I can't remember actually how he talked me into it, to tell you the truth, but I think probably with some nice car to drive or something like that. And if you know him, his personality is fairly persuasive, so he's not the man that you sort of say, no, I don't think I'll bother with it.
As with the launch of the circuit, the Festival of Speed quickly became a hugely popular fixture on the British motor racing calendar, reuniting famous drivers and famous cars, as well as bringing fans closer than ever before to their heroes.
The reception you have here is phenomenal. But coming back as world champion with #1 on the car, it's a very, very special experience.
But what is unique about the festival is the breadth and diversity of cars and bikes that attend the event, spanning more than 100 years of motor racing. The event always makes an effort to mark anniversaries, such as the last festival in 2019 that marked 50 years since Sir Jackie Stewart took his first Formula One World Championship. The paddock layout allows enthusiasts to pore over the vehicles in attendance, but there's also plenty for spectators to take part in themselves. Whilst the Cartier presentation on the Goodwood lawn is considered the most prestigious concours d'elegance in the entire world. I've been lucky to attend a multitude of festivals and drive an amazing array of cars from different decades, from a Le Mans Group C Jaguar to Nigel Mansell's World Championship winning Williams. And I'm looking forward to once again driving some amazing cars up this famous hill as we welcome fans back to the Festival of Speed.
Well, I think you'd struggle to find someone more passionate and more of an anorak than Karun Chandok. I mean, this event is perfect for him, isn't it?
Yeah, it is totally so. But again, that's just perfect for everybody that turns up. And even myself, I'm not massively into sort of my cars as such, but I love the history of motorsport. And this is the place where you see all the history that has gone before us.
And how important is it to reflect and reminisce and sort of revel in the history of motorsport in terms of a better understanding of the future of motorsport?
Yeah, and I you know, the history is always an important thing because there were some sort of dark times, but there also have been some good times as well, and of course going to the modern day. But you're right about the future as well, and that's where the manufacturers have got very involved with it as well. That's something that Duke really sort of tried to push to get this event where those manufacturers were then being able to promote the future of car technology. And of course that's where sort of battery bikes and cars have sort of shot up this hill, and a battery car is the one that holds the hill record.
Well, that is fantastic.
Yeah.
The current crop of drivers, you sense a real admiration for those who've paved the way for them, you know, particularly in terms of safety, as you touched on. But talking to them, they're almost like kids in sweet shops themselves, aren't they? You know, they're in awe of everything they're seeing.
Yes, and that's just such a brilliant thing, because sometimes with the modern tracks that these guys drive on, I think they take it for granted that safety is a big part of it, which it is. But of course, when they come here and actually drive on this little drive that they've got up to the top of the hill with the straw bales, like you mentioned earlier on. But that's sort of the essence of what motorsport was always been about, and I think it's great that they're able to sample that.
Fantastic. Well, the Festival of Speed is the brainchild of the visionary Duke of Richmond, and Karun sat down with him on Friday to have a good old chat.
Charles, I've been coming here for the last 11 years. I've seen you pull off some impossible things at Goodwood, but even I didn't expect that I would be here this weekend. How on earth have you got this event off the ground this year?
No, great to see you, by the way, and great to have you here. No, we're so pleased to have people back and to be seeing the Festival of Speed in full operation again. It's fantastic. I've got to say that everyone's been super supportive. DCMS, the local health team here in West Sussex, everyone's really pushed hard to make this happen.
And you have this magic button with God, don't you, with the weather? I mean, you know, the sun shines at Goodwood every time we come here.
So far, it's better today than it was. We've had a very wet build-up, so it's been a trying few weeks. But let's hope it's turned now for good.
It's become such an important part of the British summer, I think, you know, especially for motorsport fans, a precursor to the Grand Prix. Just talk us through who we've got this weekend, because you're celebrating the maestros of motorsport.
Absolutely, we're celebrating the great all-rounders of motorsport, the maestros who've done it all, the teams, the engineers, the drivers who've taken part in all sorts of different genres of the sport. And we've got Mario Andretti coming. He'll be here this afternoon, so Mario probably epitomises more than anyone. He's 80, in his 80s now, and he really illustrates that in a way that nobody else does. And we've got so many great drivers, teams here, lots of the F1 teams, of course, and motorcycles, and everything that celebrates the motor car in all its forms, as well, of course, the future with our Electric Avenue and the way things are obviously moving in the future and what we're all looking forward to seeing.
And just let's talk about having the fans back, because we're going to have 140,000 people at the British Grand Prix. You've got a huge crowd here this weekend. It must be wonderful for you standing on that balcony when you look out to see all of these people here again.
Absolutely. Well, it's a huge relief. I mean, they all bought their tickets for last year. They've just been held over. We've been sold out pretty much all that time. And it's just great to be able to deliver the event and get it done. And everyone's been so supportive. I mean, all our members and our fans have been unbelievably enthusiastic and stuck with it. And all the drivers and teams, they've all come back. Everyone's here. Everyone's made big efforts to travel and to be here with us, so it's fantastic.
And listen, I know how hands-on you like to be, from every single bit of this ground, from the sculptures to where the public go, where the toilets are. You are so hands-on, so I don't want to take up any more of your time. Thank you very much, and we look forward to enjoying the festival for the rest of the weekend.
No, thanks so much for being
Thank
with us.
you.
Well, it is a magnificent achievement of the Duke of Richmond, because he pulls in plenty of famous friends along the way. This place is full of them. Tom Cruise here, just hanging out with Karun and his son Kush. And Terry Grant, the stunt driver. It's great to see. He is here with his stunt director, Wade Eastwood, who's been driving Keke Rosberg's Williams. Fantastic to see. Okay, on the way, another superstar of the track, Lando Norris.
Another tea? Oh, that's my kitty. Always smiling, even though she works with dummies all day. And this is Alex. He teaches heavy metal.
Heavy metal?
That's Andrew. He keeps the rain away. See? Not a cloud in the sky.
You know when you found the right job. At Total Jobs, you'll
to the Goodwood Festival of Speed. Right, let's soak up some of this unique atmosphere now with a roundup of some of the action over the last couple of days. That's with our commentary team of John Hindhoff and Alex Brundle.
Thanks, Natalie. As ever, all the new manufacturers happy to be at Goodwood on the Hill.
And new cars as well, with Lotus using their Lotus moment to launch the new V6 supercharged Emira. Certainly a highlight out there up on the hill. Maybe the last internal combustion engine Lotus ever. Another new one then, the McLaren Artura, the high-performance hybrid. But a change of engine architecture, a new V6 motor in the back of that rocket from Woking.
Two very well-established British marks there. Here's a new one for you, Polestar, and the Polestar 1, a 2-litre supercharged and turbocharged engine, and a couple of 85 kilowatt motors as well. It has a 77-mile electric range and 600 horsepower. Also for the first time, the Drift Karner. Now, these are mentally bonkers in the very best way. This is not about speed, it's about accuracy, not that kind of accuracy, getting a little bit of a ride round the flint wall, and it's scored on style points as well as, well, just how spectacular you are. And some were more than others.
Certainly were spectacular as well. Celebrating classic British artistry in the Automotive Forum. 60-year anniversary of two fantastic British brands. Firstly, Mini, with Nick Swift hurling his 1275 GT at Group C car speeds through the flint wall. Celebrating, of course, the 60th anniversary of Mini. And, of course, in the same year, 60th anniversary of the E-Type, the E-Gal, making its way up, showing a little bit of British muscle as it laid some rubber down on the hill.
Well, Johnny, it's kind of an assault of the senses, isn't it? In a glorious, wonderful way. It reminds us what the cars used to sound like. I mean, we were rudely interrupted a little earlier. Felt like my whole rib cage was shaking again.
Yeah, as it should be, actually. That's how it should be. That's how it used to be, and it still is today, because we can see them sort of turn up here at Goodwood. But I think overall it's just wonderful to see those types of sort of, I don't know, muscle cars get themselves sort of spinning up, and seeing the variety that we got from those drift cars to the touring cars to the motorbikes that we got on there as well, all the way up to the modern day Formula 1 car.
I mean, you could spend a month here and still not do everything.
Yeah.
Everywhere you look, there's a car to see and analyse and people to talk to and things to do.
Yeah, and again, it changes every year as well. There's cars that sort of turn up that haven't been seen for many a year, and they turn up here at Goodwood, and then everybody can see them on the track. So it's wonderful that you can see all this diversity, and you just walk up to the front of the car, basically, and get that close to them. And that's something you can't do, obviously, when you go to a modern Formula 1 race. So it's great that the crowd have an opportunity to do that.
Now, I know we're up here on the stage looking down on it all, but is there anything that really grabs you? Do you want to jump off the stage and get involved? And...
Well, the one thing I'd love to do is actually, it's gone now. There's a white Brabham with a little bit of sort of Martini sponsorship, and that was the car that I saw at Brands Hatch in about 1974 that really got the hairs on the back of my neck standing up, that I wanted to drive a Formula 1 car, and that's actually here.
Well, you know why they moved
later.
it? Yeah, because they heard you did want to drive it.
Yes, exactly.
You were a wrecking ball.
Taken away. Unbelievable.
Do you have any special memories that, you know, when you think of Goodwood, it takes you back to that moment? Here we go. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, I know. I think it's very difficult to pick out one, because we've had so many greats of motorbikes and motorsport as a whole turn up here. I don't think there's anyone who sticks out. It's brilliant that they make the effort to come here. It's great that the Duke actually flies them in from America. A lot of them get a room in the house at the same time, puts them up there. I'm sure Mario Andretti's up there for sure, something like that. And I did when I first came along as well. And that's what's lovely. They have that sort of party and dinner after, I think, Saturday night they have it. And it's great what happens in there as well. Everybody sits together, everybody's mixed up, and everybody's just talking about the good old days.
For the Duke of Richmond, it's just like a massive wedding every year, isn't it?
I think it's probably not far off, yes. Yeah. And it's something you can just celebrate every year, exactly. But it just seems to get better and better. And Charles, I have to say, puts a lot of effort into making this thing get better and better.
It really does. Okay, you will struggle to find two more passionate petrolheads, or indeed electric enthusiasts, than David Croft and Chris Evans. And the two of them caught up on Friday to chat through all the things that they love so much.
Goodwood, sunshine, motor cars, and some people call this work. I'm not sure it is.
I know. Festival of Speed back 2021 after a year off last year for obvious reasons. It doesn't get any better for me apart from the revival, which I like even more than I like Festival of Speed, and the members meeting in March as well. But, you know, this is a much and quite rightly envied motorsports in Mecca, you know, throughout the world. It might be the best thing to come to if you like motor cars, motorsport. You know a little bit of history, you like a little bit of excitement, a little bit of smoke, the odd donut here and there, some crazy drifting. I mean, it's all here, isn't it? It's like a pick and mix of all kinds of motorsport.
It's the most glorious garden party out there, and it just reminds us how much we love the combustion engine and how much we love the future as well, because it's not just about the past, it's everything that's going to come on four wheels and also in the air.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% Crofty. I mean, the thing about the combustion engine, you know, and about old style fossil fuel motor cars is the fact that they will now become not necessarily museum pieces, but you know, testament to past engineering. Yeah. And I feared electric cars. You know, I was testing them, I was writing about them maybe nearly 10 years ago, and I thought, this is never, you know, this isn't going to work for us. Viscerally, this is not going to happen. But I have been bitten by the EV bug now, and I'm not just on message. I'm not paid by anybody to say this. You know, I've got an electric car. I've driven loads of electric cars. They are so exciting for so many different reasons, and they have their own magic about them. They have their own charisma about them. They put you in a different kind of mood. You know, I'm in an entirely better frame of mind when I drive to work in my EV than I would have been, you know, in my more traditionally aspirated car. But there's still a place for, you know, horse racing, fillies and stallions and champions of the past. And in a way, it makes it more special. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's like going to the V&A or the National Portrait Gallery. You know, and the last time I looked, they're pretty busy, those places.
You're going to come back next year anyway?
I'm just going to stay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to stay. Give my love, give my regards to my family, my friends, my job. I'm just going to stay here.
You do that. We'll join you. Thanks for taking some time out
in
with
the
us.
Sunshine, Crofty.
This is the best day ever.
Doesn't get any better.
Love it. Thanks, mate.
Okay.
I couldn't agree more, chaps. OK, one of the stars of the F1 2021 season is undoubtedly Lando Norris, and Johnny caught up with him a little earlier on.
Lando, here we are in front of a sea of people. Beautiful stuff, beautiful stuff. But of course, they want to see you.
And you.
But they also want to see, they want to see me, but they want to see you in this race car. Now, this has a brilliant history, doesn't it? The last time I saw this, it was three wheels on my wagon. At Suzuka. This is the Ayrton Senna car.
Yes.
And that infamous crash with Alan
it's even got the Suzuka sticker inside it.
Yeah, brilliant stuff, yeah. So, what's it like? What's it mean to you driving here at Goodwood?
I mean, first of all, it's just a cool opportunity to drive a car like this. I drove Fittipaldi's car, and I drove the M8D, McLaren M8D. So to get like a chance to not just drive my Formula One car, but these cars from many years ago, feel what those drivers felt, you know, which is in a car like this from Senna is very different to nowadays with the H pattern. I'm still struggling with that, and clutch on the foot as well. Very different to what we have nowadays.
Heel and towing?
I did a bit in Ginetto in 2014, so I'm not a complete rookie. You know, I've got a bit of skill with it.
Right.
But no power steering, and like feels so open as well. You know, feel like you're in a go-kart with no halo and so much space in front of you. But it's such a cool feeling, it really is.
Yeah. And what about the event itself? How many times have you been here?
Third time doing something here, probably I think fourth time actually here. So.
Right, but over the years you must have noticed the change. It just seems to get busier and busier.
It does.
Okay, not as busy as it
especially
normally
now I'm here, you know.
Well, I have to say, yes, considering the year you're having,
yeah,
I'm not surprised there's that many people here. I think the rest of the paddock out there, the F1 paddock, there is no one around them at the moment. Is that
I feel
way?
sorry for them, but no, it's really cool. It's I think, it's one of the only events of the year, you know, when everyone comes together. Are we waiting for
like
this,
the old school F1 engine,
And apart from Silverstone, maybe, where everyone also gets together, it's the only event where, you know, motorbikes, cars, old and new, everyone comes together and has a good time. So it's very enjoyable. Also for me to meet a lot of drivers. You know, you don't get a lot of opportunities nowadays to to meet so many drivers from the past that are actually driving some of their own cars. So it's a cool feeling. And yeah, I'll be back for many more years.
Yeah, well, we've got Silverstone coming up, obviously, next weekend.
Yep.
But there was a little sort of togetherness of the team. Yourself, Zach, and Daniel in a GTR McLaren driving around there. I think we're going to show that next weekend. But we've also got a little tease. So do you want to take the tease away?
This is my chance.
Yeah.
Roll the VT.
One quali lap and then a 6-lap race.
Oh, and around he goes.
He's run out of talent.
7-time Grand Prix spinner.
Birth to Daniel.
Oh, wow. First day on the job. It's rough. Yeah, that's not a good first impression, is it?
3, 2, 1.
Are you full throttle, Zach?
No. I think this car has you guys covered. Plus, you guys are on TV. I can't make you look bad.
Where's Zach?
Oh, that was mega.
Up the inside of both of us.
2 more corners to go, Zach. Don't blow it. Don't blow it, Zach.
You won't make this shot, jackass. Ah!
Hello and welcome back to the Goodwood Festival of Speed. Now, the theme for this year is Maestros of Motorsport. 2 esteemed guests of honour have been chosen, and the first up is the legendary Roger Penske.
Mr. Penske, welcome to the Festival of Speed. I can't believe this is your first time here.
Well, I can tell you, I've missed a lot, and the Duke of Richmond has asked me many times, and I've always had a conflict with our racing team in the U.S., but I can tell you this has been amazing. What a fun time. My wife's with me, and we have a bunch of our cars here that have competed around the world, so it's just a perfect time.
As you said, there's a whole range of cars here. We had a look at it. I spent ages, in fact, looking at them yesterday. Here in the UK, we haven't really seen your cars on track as often as perhaps in other places. So it must be proud for you to see such a lineup here.
Well, I would say when we were invited, they said we could bring a group of our cars. We went all the way back to John Watson, a Formula One car, all the way up to a Pontiac that I drove in NASCAR, and then, of course, the 917-30 and also the Spider car. So it's really a conglomerate of great cars, and it's really a definition of the success we've had with the people behind our success.
And we at Sky Sports F1 are now broadcasting the IndyCar series as well as the Indy 500. You are now in charge of the Indy 500, of course. How happy are you with the way that championship's going?
Well, you can imagine in January of 2020, we bought the Speedway and the series, and our budget said we're going to have 300,000 people 3 or 4 months later, but obviously COVID came, and we didn't have the race on Memorial Day, which was the first time in many, many decades. We had 2,500 people who were basically industry people when we had it, so really disappointing. But the greatest thing I was able to say is, driver, start your engine and tell the public that we're opening up America on Memorial Day 6 weeks ago, so real thrill.
It's been a long time since we've seen Penske in Formula One. Are we ever going to see you guys back on the Formula One grid?
I think that we're overloaded with opportunity, and I root for the guys in Formula One, know a lot of the drivers, but it's a different business. We have tried to align our car business with our racing. It's been a common thread through our company to build our brand, and I think we've done it primarily, domestically in the U.S.
Liberty have talked about their growth plan, America being a real key part of their growth strategy for Formula One. Would we see Formula One back racing at Indianapolis on the road course?
Well, we've had conversation with Liberty. Obviously, they've been able to put together a very attractive package in Miami. We have a Formula One circuit that's been approved, and we'd love to have one, but I think it's going to take time. We need to digest, our purchase, and we got NASCAR, we have other types of racing. We want to have a big sports car race or a long-distance race, but I can tell you, on the bucket list is let's have a Formula One race.
You're here in a race suit. What are you driving this weekend? Tell us about it.
Well, I'm driving the RS Spider that won Sebring with Dumas and Timo Bernard and Emil Coulthard back in the early 2000s. But interesting, a man came up to me today and gave me a program from 1963 when I won the race at Brands Hatch. Can you believe that? On the bank holiday. So that brought back a real tear to my eye to think that far back we were racing here and being successful. That's my claim to fame here in the UK.
Have you enjoyed driving up the hill here, the Festival of Speed?
It's been amazing. I mean, it's a little narrower than I thought. I looked at a lot of video on it, but never to get in the car. And of course, I hadn't driven the car, so you're learning the track and you're learning the car. Probably the worst thing you can do as a driver than try to go fast, but it's been terrific.
And are we going to see you back here at the Festival of Speed after your first thing?
I hope I get an invite for sure.
I'm sure you'll be all right. Listen, thank you very much. I know you've got to get back in the car later today, I believe. So thank you very much for taking time to chat.
Well, that's great, and thanks for what you do. And we're so glad you're handling our racing over here from Indianapolis in our series. We've got some great stuff coming next year.
Look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, 84 years young and as motivated and busy as ever. Can you quantify just how much this great man has done for motorsport?
Oh, it's mega. Well, the involvement he's had over the years, from the NASCAR to IndyCar team to everything that he's done with the sports cars at the same time, what he's done with car dealerships that he owns in the UK. I think it was on the board of Mercedes at one point. But again, it's the F1 connection, of course, we have over here in the UK. And he was part of that with the 60s, 70s with John Watson. And there was a nice story with John, because John always used to have a big beard, a moustache, and he was told many times, when you take that beard off.
It looks so different.
So different, yes. And he basically was said, no, I'm not taking it off until I win a race. And he won the race for Penske, the only win for Penske, and the beard has come off, and that's where we see this sort of clean-shaven John Watson modern day. So again, down to the Penske name.
How wonderful. Karun talks about growing Formula One. Look, there's the beard. Look at that. I mean, it's almost unrecognisable.
Yes.
What a legend. Karun touched on it there, the growth of Formula One in America, just how important that is for the global reach of the sport. And you'd have to say that Roger's just doing wonderful things in terms of nurturing that relationship, that transatlantic mutual respect, if you like, between the categories. He's a sort of real catalyst for that, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. He's a shrewd businessman, and because of that passion that he's got for motorsport, I think there is always these sort of ideas that come up, and Roger is someone you want on your side if you're trying to promote a new series, or the series you're in, the IndyCar series that we obviously show on Sky Sports F1 channel, and that is a very important part of what Roger is involved with. And of course he talks about getting F1 back to Indianapolis as well, and it will happen, because if Roger sort of says we want it to happen, eventually we'll get it back.
As you say, it's all underpinned by a passion. Yeah. That's why he's so authentic. That's what really drives him, isn't it? And the fact that he wants and can jump into the RS Spider and go take it up the hill is testament to that, isn't it?
It is, and it's wonderful that he's still got that sort of desire to sort of drive up a narrow hill, like he said. And it is a bit of a challenging circuit, that's for sure. But I think at the end of the day, one thing that I think is important, that Roger is always so integral in what happens in his teams. He's always on the pit wall, he's always involved, and that just shows that passion that's sort of flowing through his blood.
You're buzzing with all this noise, aren't you?
Oh yeah, that smell of rubber. A lot of rubber burning.
If it was smell-o-vision, you'd know what we were talking about, but it's not. It's great though, isn't it? Okay, just a fortnight after jumping into the W12, Anthony Davison, the lucky thing, got the chance to drive the W10. Here he is.
I was recently driving the W12 at Silverstone, and now I'm here again in Goodwood driving the W10, the dominant car from 2019 season with Lewis Hamilton behind the wheel. So I'm looking forward to driving here at Goodwood up the hill. I must have done something right, because they've asked me back. So really going to give it some and see what this thing can do. Well, here we go then, Goodwood 2021 in the W10. Different driving the hybrid. It reacts in a really different way. The only cars I've driven up the hill are V8s and V10s. You just hear the turbo spinning and spooling up. The engine pops and bangs. Taking it easy through the left and right section. A little bit damp still here in the shade. But the engine is ferociously fast. It's got so much torque compared to the old V8s. The last things in Formula 1 I've driven up here is actually a rocket ship.
Oh, wonderful. You can hear how much he enjoyed that. Now, another of our Sky F1 team, Jenson Button, also enjoyed a run out. It was the 1982 FW08 for him. Just before he went out, he had a quick chat with Karun Chandok.
back at the Festival of Speed. I looked after it this morning, so it's nice and clean for you. Are you looking forward to having a go?
You warmed her up for me.
I warmed it up for you, yes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I've driven some Williams in the past, as you might have recalled. Obviously, back in 2000 was my first year in F1. That was an FW22, so a few years after this one. I've also driven the six-wheeler at Silverstone, which was so much fun. But yeah, how was it? How was it up the hill?
It's mega. You'll be amazed how easy the gearbox is to use. But it's just how far forward the drivers sit. I mean, your feet are going to be there, which is, you can see why people like Martin are limping, aren't they? The people who race in that era.
I mean, that's insane, isn't it?
Yeah.
It looks quite funny because it doesn't have a front wing either, doesn't it? It's quite an unusual looking car.
Yeah.
But yeah, now you mention it, yeah. I'm going to be taking it really easy.
But it's great to have the fans back, isn't it? I mean, it's incredible.
Isn't it great to have the fans back, guys?
Just a wave.
Excellent. So yeah, it's lovely. I might be a little bit over the hill for that. Actually, I'm not. I would love to get back in the car.
Or replace George. Well, his car's here. Should we wander down this way? Because you mentioned your first Formula One car, the FW22, and it's down here. So let's see if we can reunite you.
Nigel's old car, Damon's car.
Damon's car.
And there we have it.
There's a whole load of British drivers, George's car as well. Do you think you'll fit in it? Do you think you'll still...
I'm skinnier now than I was when I raced this, because I remember Patrick Head saying, oh, he's a little bit tubby, isn't he? That's what he said about me when I got to Williams. So, yeah, I'm probably skinnier now than I was, so I would 100% fit.
What are your memories of driving this car for the first time? Do you remember?
I mean, my memory was it got round 2 corners and then blew up. And then we put a new engine in, and it got round 3 corners and blew up. And then it blew up on the stand. So no, the initial memory wasn't so special. But once we got it going, the reliability was fantastic. And it was such a fun car to drive. And to be fair, it was a tough year for me because it wasn't such a good year for me because I didn't really learn much in terms of mechanically understanding a racing car. I just drove it, and it just drove really well. So, no, a really easy car to drive, and I loved it. It was such an amazing experience that year.
Is it still special to come back and see it here? You know, you don't often get to see the car, I guess, do you?
No, I haven't seen it for a long time. The last time I saw it was actually in L.A.
Right.
It was L.A. Father's Day a couple of years ago, and they do like a car show, and it was there. It was actually Ralph's car, but I mean, it doesn't matter. It's just a sticker on the front because we shared tubs backwards and forwards. But no, it's a beautiful car. I love how simple they were back then. No, it's lots of special memories, a couple of bad ones, but mostly really, really good in this car.
Now let's talk about the Festival of Speed itself, because I know you've been coming here for many years with your family. You've seen your mum and your sisters having afternoon tea. There you are in the picture. How much are you enjoying just being back here at the Festival of Speed?
Yeah, it's lovely. I mean, today's a stunningly beautiful day, and the weekend's going to be a bit tricky. I think we're going to have a bit of rain. But
is that why you're disappearing off and not, and I'm having to drive it tomorrow?
I'm actually here all weekend, but I'm just busy tomorrow. But I'm busy driving other things, to be fair, which is nice. It's nice to be able to jump around and drive different things, but that's what's special about the Goodwood Festival of Speed. You jump in an F1 car, then you'll jump in a road car, then you'll jump in something else, and it's a really cool event. And I'm so glad, as you said, that we've got the fans back here to really enjoy this sporting event. For me, the best sporting event in the world, because everyone can really get involved and see these magnificent works of art close up.
And finally, got to ask you about British Grand Prix. You're going to be with us at Silverstone for the Grand Prix, which is part of Sky. You've missed the last couple. Have you been watching from home? What do you think of it all?
I haven't, actually. I was there last year.
Well, no, but you missed the last couple of races in Austria, I mean. Sorry, not last year, in the last couple of races.
I've been watching. I get up at 5:30 in the morning and watch the races.
Committed fan.
Exactly. I've also got kids, so they wake me up that early anyway. But, no, it's been an awesome season. It's a weird one, isn't it? Because I'm not sure any of us expected this year to be that exciting. It's like the bridge year, wasn't it, from 2020 to 2022 regulations. But it's been the best year, I think, in the hybrid era. So loving the competition. And, Mercedes are on the back foot a little bit. They know what to do. They'll get back there with Red Bull, and we'll see a proper fight, hopefully, at the British Grand Prix. But we're going to be really busy, I think.
Well, I think you're getting busy. They're about to fire up your engine, so I'm going to let you go get your helmet. But thanks for chatting. See you later.
Cheers.
Jensen Button, tubby. Never. I don't
Never.
believe it.
Never ever.
Do you agree with him? Is it the best year in Formula One in the hybrid era?
Yeah, I think it is, yes. And I say that because there are two different teams, two different drivers from those different teams fighting it out for the championship. We've got the youngster, Max Verstappen, 23-year-olds, and sort of the older generation of Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time world champion, and they're fighting it out proper. You know, this is not over in any way, because I think there's a few twists that are still going to come away. So, yeah, spot on there, gents.
It will run and run. Now, what is it about drivers of any age wanting to test their skill set in any different car? You seem to want to jump in to whatever you can get your hands on. This is you in 2014 driving Michael's last car
from 2012.
How was that experience?
Lovely. Again, you know, with everything that Michael did in his motorsport career, and get that opportunity to give it a little bit of a thrash, or as much as I felt I could, is just brilliant. You know, I remember doing, Ayrton Senna's Donington, fantastic sort of win that he had there, driving that, actually sat in the same seat that Ayrton sat in. I couldn't actually see where I was going because he was a bit taller than me. But this with Michael, the Mercedes, the history, of course, what they've been involved with over the many, many decades is fantastic. So it's lovely to do that.
And how much can you really open it up? I mean, it's obviously not a real racetrack, it's a hill. It's quite difficult to negotiate.
Yeah, well, they don't come with sort of sticky qualifying tyres, or not when I had to go anyway. So you got a lot. This is the only stretch that you can sort of give it a little bit of a gun in, but it's just a bit of spinning up, just trying to make a bit of a show, hearing that lovely engine sound that the old normally aspirated engines did, and that's all part of it. It's not the speed, it's the noise.
Listen, you have never lost your need for speed.
No, I know.
You
that's
scare
still there.
me. I will never sit in the passenger seat with you again. OK, coming up after the break, it's all things F1 here at the Goodwood Festival of Speed.
Silverstone gets ready for the British Grand Prix.
You need a lift.
...1958, Cooper T51 has driven to victory by Sterling Moss.
Jackie Stewart races on to win.
Number 22 was fairly stepping on it, but he made a miscalculation at Mangan's Corner, one of the many sharp turns, and there he goes.
Excellent driving from Johnny Herbert. Johnny wins!
He's a lovely chap, and he richly deserves it.
In split seconds, there's one almighty pilot.
Oh, look at that. What a wonderful view.
Look at Nigel Mansell now.
James Hunt, current world champion, who takes the checkered flag.
What more British could we have? Beautiful day, beautiful car, country roads, you and your lederhosen.
He is getting a standing ovation. Lewis Hamilton, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 British Grand Prix wins. He does it.
Well, it's a massive day for English football and a huge week for British motorsports, the one we've all been waiting for. And it's a different format this weekend. Practice 1 at 2 o'clock, then qualifying for the sprint is at 5:25. So you've got practice 2 at 11:45, and then that sprint race at 3:35. And the result of that will determine the grid for the race proper, which we're on air for at 1:30, and it lights out at 3 o'clock. And Johnny, we've waited a long time for a capacity crowd at a sporting event. What better place to do it than Silverstone?
Absolutely. And you know, when you sort of rock up at sort of the front gates and the massive crowds that are sort of there, then you go over the bridge towards sort of the paddock itself. And it's just a brilliant feeling that you get as a driver, but even as mechanics and working now on TV for Sky Sports. The passion that the British public have for their motorsport is brilliant, and it comes out best when we're at Silverstone. So thoroughly looking forward to it.
And how much does the crowd actually lift you? Does it give you an advantage as a driver? Does it put a spring in your step?
It puts a spring in your step. I don't think it gives you any time. Nigel Mansell said it was about 1 to 2 seconds, which I wish that was the case. And if that was the case, Nigel, well, good on you. But I don't really think so. But it's a good feeling to do a good job there, because there's a lot of people that were there when we were doing Formula 3, and then they're still there when you actually get yourselves into Formula 1. So that's that passion I'm talking about. And then you've got the younger generations that are coming along at the same time. The kids that were watching me in F3 are now bringing their kids to the modern day Formula 1, and that's a very important part.
And talking of those younger generations coming through, we've got two really exciting British hopes in Lando Norris and George Russell. It's a big weekend for them, isn't it? Because Lando showed such promise throughout the season already. But you look at Lewis and Lando and George, we've got a lot to be excited about, haven't we?
A lot. You know, we've got the now with Lewis, you know, and everything that he's trying to achieve to beat Michael Schumacher's record and go to 8. But it's going to be a battle for him, as we know, with Max. But then you've got George, who's trying to get himself, you know, into the right car that will give him a chance of winning races, which is going to happen, obviously. And then you've got Lando, who's doing an absolute cracking job at the moment, and that's something that is going to be so good for us as fans of the sport, seeing these youngsters grow and grow and grow, get better and better and better, and then championships. Hey, we'll be coming our way again. It's British.
You are part of an elite group who's won the British Grand Prix.
Yes,
very select
years
club.
ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you know, how do you reflect on that now? Do you still dream about that day?
Yeah, you do, because it is something so special with everything that you've worked against when you're doing from karting all the way through the different formulas, and you know, to get to Formula 1 and then get that chance at Silverstone. You
It wasn't that long ago.
No, it wasn't quite that long ago. Thank you. I'm glad you noticed that one, but it wasn't far away, I must admit. But yeah, it's still a massive thing that I look back at, and it's lovely when I go back there to see the old podium that's still there today, and just sort of, you know, reminisce a little bit.
I mean, I have to say, I grew up very near Silverstone, and I never fail to get goosebumps when I drive in. It's a wonderful place. OK, 2 more British stars for you now, in the shape of Damon Hill and Sir Jackie Stewart.
OK, so where am I? I'm in the Drivers' Club at Goodwood, and I've got a Sir Jackie Stewart here, the real thing. You're here every year, Jackie, I think, and you were driving your car and your son's car. How many cars have you got
and
here?
My other son's car.
And your other son's car.
No, we've got 3 Tyrrells.
Yeah.
Great. I mean, Ken Tyrrell was such a wonderful man, and I've got Roy Top here, who was my mechanic all the time throughout my whole period, including the Matra, which isn't here. So it's a great get-together, really. And Goodwood, you know, the Duke does a tremendous job, so I'm very pleased to be here.
It is fantastic. I mean, the atmosphere is always brilliant. And, of course, with COVID, the restrictions, they've loosened it a little bit here. But it's great to see people back and that, you know, the fans. Every time I come here, I drive and I think, oh, no, I've got to get my car and everything. And then you go up the hill and people are waving.
Of course, everybody.
It's lovely.
I mean, the spirit here, I think, is above almost any other, because a Grand Prix, nobody gets this close. All of the fans or all of the people who enjoy motor racing are up close and personal. And what a collection. I mean, Roger Penske's here, Mario Andretti's here. I mean, the current racing drivers are here, and old people like you and I are here.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're talking about 50 years now since you won your first race in a Tyrrell.
That's right, 50 years ago, and we've got the car here.
I remember it, Jackie. It can't be 50 years. Tell me.
Well, it's amazing 50 years. I can't remember that far back.
But it's true. And the cars, as you said, the cars never change. It's just the drivers get a little bit more wrinkly.
Well, I tell you what, Ken Tyrrell was a remarkable man. And, you know, nowadays the honours system is applying lots of people, and he never was recognised in any way. And he just did so much for British motorsport. I mean, to build up in a wooden hut, which is still there, the wooden hut that was...
Ockley, in Ockley?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine all 3 of our world championships were done in that same wooden hut? And, you know, you think about going to McLaren or Red Bull, and you see 300 or 400, no, 1,000 people looking after them. When Roy Top was with me and the rest of the team, it was 7 mechanics to look after 2 Grand Prix drivers. I mean, it's just a different world, really.
Well, it's tremendous again to get you here and then be chatting with you and the drivers. Now, that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's about meeting your heroes. Obviously, you're my hero, but I've also known you for a long time.
Well,
but as a child. But, you know, I bumped into Mario Andretti, and you've got all the motorcycle guys here. You can, it's a wonderful
Agostini's here.
Agostini. Of course, I had a poster of Agostini on my wall.
Wonderful. And by the way, I mean, he's a motorcycle man, this as well. But I knew him when he was a wee boy, because his daddy, I used to go and stay with him if we were going to test for BRM up at Snetterton. And this lad would be waking me up with the morning, and his two sisters. I tell you, difficult children.
Nothing's changed. Well, anyway, listen, this is the warm-up for the British Grand Prix, so we're going to have to go back now, I think, to the British Grand Prix at Silverstone.
Oh, and I'll be there. That's the big one.
I can't imagine Damon ever being difficult. OK, let's get another roundup then of all the action from our commentary team, John Hindhoff and Alex Brundle, on all things F1 at Goodwood.
It's been a cornucopia of delights if you're an F1 fan. The DN1 shadow in the Hill Racing colours, with Damon himself behind the wheel of the car that was built in 1973 at John Thompson's shop just around the corner from Shadow, actually in Northampton. Best result at the Belgian Grand Prix at Zolder. Started 12 Grand Prix starts that year, and it wasn't the best of conditions for Damon. That was a difficult car to drive in period as well. 2 of Sir Jackie Stewart's car. He went up the hill in the Derek Gardner designed DFV engined 005. 7th in the 1972 Austrian Grand Prix. Won 2 of its 11 races.
Yes, it is Adrian Newey looking at the overalls. There he is.
He reunited with an old friend up the hill in, again, rather less than optimum conditions.
Optimum conditions they certainly weren't, but Emerson Fittipaldi was not bothered at all in a car which needs no introduction. The 1990 McLaren MP4, and it was a absolutely maximising his time. Lando Norris would have a go in that car this morning in slightly better conditions, it must be said, for Lando, but Emerson really giving it some in the most famous of Honda-powered McLarens.
Mythical status attached to the Ferrari 156. The shark nose, for obvious reasons. Look at the nostrils at the front. In period, they were dismantled. Jason Wright has had 2 homage built to these cars using the original blueprint. Phil Hill won the World Championship that year at Monza. Von Trips had a fatal accident, and Il Commendatore decided that was enough, and he didn't want to see those cars again.
A little closer to present day, Alex Albon jumps behind the wheel in a trip into the world of V8 F1 with the Red Bull RB7. The car, of course, Sebastian Vettel took to World Championship honours in 2011. Not so much opportunity to use a blown diffuser up the Goodwood Hill, but long wheelbase tech wasn't holding Esteban Gutierrez back. Top class machinery, you can't get closer to it anywhere in the world. But will a Formula One car win the competitive shootout later on this afternoon? I can't wait to see different eras and types of car going head to head up Goodwood Hill.
Couldn't agree more, Alex. Now, what a wonderful celebration of the glorious history of motorsport. Now, after the break, we'll hear from our second maestro of motorsport. It's Mario Andretti.
Mario, lovely to have you here at the Festival of Speed. First of all, what are you driving around here?
Just about anything that they ask me to. There's plenty equipment out here. I've been looking around and I see quite a few cars with my name on the side. So yeah, I got fitted up in a couple of them. So I plan to be pretty busy.
So I've seen your World Championship winning cars here, the Lotus 79. Have you been up the hill in that?
Yes, that was the one but I'm half asleep because I flew all night to get here, you know, and so anyway, I was very careful.
What do you think of the Festival of Speed? I mean, it's unique worldwide, isn't it?
You said that, unique. I mean, for any motorsports fan, it's all here. It's all happening here because, as you know, our sport is rich of so many disciplines, you know, at the highest level. You want to see your favorite car, you come to Goodwood, for sure. I mean, this is amazing. This event is amazing, like no other on the planet for us, motorsports fans.
Now, I know you still follow Formula One and you watch the coverage across in the States. You listen to our commentary from Sky in the UK.
I listen to you.
Are we doing okay?
You're doing okay.
Now, listen, we've seen the Andretti dynasty in F1. You, of course, are world champion. Michael raced in '93. Marco tested the Honda. Is there a fourth generation somewhere we're going to see in Formula One?
You never know. You never know. He's playing around quite a bit. He's buzzing. You know, his name is actually my grandson, is Rio. Like Mario, but he won't answer Mario. He said Rio. And he's in a go-kart now.
Okay.
And right now he likes the straightaway because he likes the speed. So he's up, well, 7 years old. He's up to about 61 miles per hour already. So we're very responsible people here. You know?
I just want to talk about this weekend as well, because there's a lot of people here from your generation of racing, aren't there? You know, I've seen Sir Jackie Stewart and Roger Penske's here. Is it nice to come and catch up with friends?
It's amazing. It's amazing. I love it, love it. I'm just walking up and who do I see? Giacomo Agostini. You know, another one of the heroes, you know, 15-time world champion and all of that. And you see, that's what you see here. And everyone, they're all enjoying this so much like I am, you know. And I said I just spent some time with Tom Christensen, you know, and people like that. So then he goes back, he tells me that he showed me a photo that he took, you know, when he was 9 years old, you know, in Sweden. You know, and here again, I figure, I thought he was as old as me. No.
And finally, I've got to ask you, because we got the sad news this week about the passing of Carlos Reuterman, of course, a driver that you raced against. Can you share some memories of Carlos?
Well, of course. I mean, we were teammates, and, you know, unfortunately, we were struggling with the cars at that time. And, you know, I was in the 80, he was in the 79. And the 80, I think it was a better car for just a short period of time, but I think there were some other issues that were not to be fixed immediately, and so we both had to give it up. But, you know, that's the technical side. But as a friend, you know, one thing that I learned quickly is see the quality of the driver that Carlos Reuterman was. As fast as anyone. And he's another one like Sterling Moss, the truly uncrowned world champion. No question.
Wow, amazing. Thank you very much, and enjoy your weekend. Hopefully you get some sleep. But thank you very much.
Well, wonderful to hear from Mario there. Where does he rank for you, Johnny, in the list of the greats?
Not right at the top, but sort of amongst that sort of top 10 that I think I could sort of go through, which I'm not. And, you know, he did some amazing things in his career. I think he's, you know, his comeback race he did in '82 for Ferrari, I think stands out massively for me. He won Monza in '77. He won the World Championship in '78 for Lotus, and then sort of it was a sporadic comeback that he had. He got pole position on that comeback, finished third. I think he had a turbo issue, but I think at the end of the day, you know, what Mario was able to do in IndyCar to Formula One is just so outstanding, and the man still has the passion for it today.
He does, and the stamina to pull an all-nighter and then jump in the car. Now you'll hear some cheering behind us, and that is because we've got the McLaren boys waving the England flag ahead of the football tonight. And actually, there's some great pictures here of Lando Norris. Look at the flags behind him.
I know.
And you know what? He's going to the game tonight.
Yes,
Can you believe
I know
it?
he is. Yes,
Can you believe
I
it?
think he's somehow squeezed into the Royal Box. I think he has.
Has he now? Oh,
Yeah,
he's
I know.
going places.
One thing that was
kid.
really good, as the cars are sort of prepared to sort of go to the little paddock, all the McLaren guys, when the Ferrari came past, had their English flags out waving at them as they went by. Brilliant
And I heard Lando say as well, because Mark Ii was behind him in the Ferrari, was, as long as the Italians stay behind, that's fine by me. It's great to see them just lapping it all up there, isn't it?
It is, and again, it's so relaxed when they come there. So even for these guys who are running these cars, they have a wonderful time as well, with the drivers that are there with them, with the crowd that sort of really does interact. They're going up there all there, everybody's waving in the back of the van to the fans, and that's what this place is all about.
Come on, England.
You got it.
I'm getting nervous.
I hope so.
Okay, very soon we'll have the hill climb, the competitive element of this event. But before that, let's soak up some more McLaren magic with Karun Chandok caught up with Daniel Ricciardo and Zach Brown.
So I've wandered down to McLaren and found these guys here. Now, Zach, you've let him out in an amazing bit of kit this morning. Were you a bit nervous?
Well, the good news is you can still put the wheels on, so it's in one piece. No, of course not. You know, when in all seriousness, I mean, these are very expensive treasures, so you won't let anyone out in them. But when it comes to our Grand Prix drivers and Emerson Fittipaldi and stuff like that, you know they're going to bring it back in one piece.
And you, it's whet your appetite, hasn't it? I could see you, that smile. I was in the queue behind him, and I could see the smile through his helmet. It's whet your appetite for more, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think, more than anything now, I'd love like a dry track to really open it up and have some fun. So, but it's cool. The first thing I wanted to do was just call Dad and just be like, I did it. I drove it. It's definitely a pinch myself moment.
Do you like coming here and hanging out for the weekend?
Yeah, I think like that's something that's, I think, the most nice to see is the fans coming back. But I mean, when I get to kind of go back in time and experience this, I definitely love it. It's something that it's a privilege to be able to do it. So yeah, this is the coolest thing I've taken up the hill so far.
And Zach, you've got Emerson Fittipaldi, you just mentioned. He drove Senna's 91 car. They were, of course, great friends.
Yes.
Back in the day, late 80s, early 90s. Was it special for you to have someone like Emerson, a McLaren world champion, drive that?
Yeah, at the end of the day, and I think people that know me know I'm a big fan of motor racing. So I love the history of the sport, you know, the drivers, the cars. Emerson, of course, was McLaren's first world champion in '74, and he had a real closeness to Ayrton. So when we were going through who should drive what cars, we felt for Emerson to go out in a Senna car would be very cool. And Emo's a very emotional, passionate driver, so I think it meant a lot to him as well.
So Dan, it's difficult here. I know we're on somebody's driveway rather than a racetrack, but are you able to get a sense of what racing was like in that era for Senna and Prost and those heroes?
Scary. Scary. It has gone through my head, like, as you say, we're kind of cruising up a driveway, and I've put myself in the scenario of going like wheel to wheel at those speeds, and yeah, like is it 130R Suzuka? Yeah. And like these kind of corners, and yeah, I think like back in the day, obviously like you kind of don't know better, so I think it would have been all right. But now knowing what we know, to go back in time and to do it, I don't know.
Zach, I've finally got to ask you, this is the first weekend, really, that we've seen fans back, haven't we? The three of us have been in the F1 bubbles. We've been pretty isolated from the rest of the world. And we got the British Grand Prix coming up, full capacity. As a team, how excited are you to have McLaren's fans back trackside?
This is awesome to see everybody out here lining up to see Daniel and the cars and Emo. You know, at the end of the day, we go motor racing for the fans. You know, the whole ecosystem of Formula One is built with the fan in mind. Without great fans, you won't have countries that want to put on races. You won't have sponsors on the race cars. We wouldn't be able to afford to pay Daniel. You know, to get the fans back, that's what sport's about. So it's great. They, you know, it's a home race, and just super excited to be back here, rain or shine.
And finally from you, British Grand Prix, how are you looking forward to the weekend? The team's obviously come off the back of a podium for Lando. What's your hopes heading into Silverstone?
Yeah, I'm obviously pumped to see the team do well and obviously be a part of that now. But of course, I want to get on the podium. You know, I want to do that and certainly, make my contribution to the trophy cabinet. So,
does he get to keep it?
We keep all trophies. That goes back a long way. And
he hasn't read my contract.
But it does mean I'll bring out the Dale Earnhardt senior car for Daniel to give it a bit of a go here next year. So that's the game plan, right?
That's it. And, so there's a lot to look forward to. And I saw actually, I think today was like the 10th year anniversary of me. I think this day 10 years ago was my first F1 race. So and at Silverstone. So like Silverstone's always had a lot of memories for me, and to go back there with a British team, and it's cool. It's really cool. So I'm hanging out.
Well, fantastic to see that big smile back on Daniel's face. A feel-good moment for him, no doubt, getting in that car. Probably quite important for him to press that reset button after what's been a difficult few races in Formula One.
Yeah.
He's talking about wanting to get that podium. How far off do you think he is from that?
Again, in this game, it takes such a small thing to sort of make a big difference when he's in the car. He had a good race in Austria. That will be sort of very important for him. We discussed it, I think, when we were out there. But it is very important to have a result like that because you know the car's good because you can see what Lando's doing. So you know it's there. It's just being able to sort of apply it when it's needed. But he's going to a track he loves and adores, as he said there. And I think that's going to hopefully be that nucleus to sort of make things get better. If it gets better for him. But more importantly, it gets better for McLaren as well. Two drivers doing well.
Well, you do feel that the team are really pulling together around him, giving him all the support he needs. I mean, they certainly still believe in him, don't they?
Yeah, well, you'd be stupid if you didn't believe in him just because of what he's done beforehand. So, there's still some improvement. Of course, he knows that, but when you apply it, it's sort of, as I said, it will click together very quickly, and then he'll be on the pace.
Great stuff. Okay, after the break, it's the moment we've all been waiting for, the hill climb. And if you don't know what that is, here's Karun to explain.
The Festival of Speed is a fun family weekend, but there's also a competitive element with the shootout. I'm going to use this Williams FW08 to show you the path up the hill that all these competitors are going to be facing soon.
So here I am, rolling up to the start line at the Goodwood Festival of Speed. This is at the start line. Here we go. First gear. It's a wet, drizzly, slippery day today, so we've got to be a bit careful, especially under the trees. Up to the first corner, through the hay bales. Lovely to see this house in front of me, the crowd lining the side of the track. It's a wonderful sight. Let's unleash a bit of power, make a bit of noise as we go up the hill here. The cars always bottom out a little bit as you're going up the hill. Even in these drizzly conditions, you try and get just a little bit of speed, try and get a feel of the car and have a bit of fun. There we go, wow! Unleash the 550 horsepower from this glorious Ford DFE engine. Give it a nice wide berth around the flint wall. They're climbing up now to the last couple of corners. It gets really narrow here between the hay bales. Through this right-hander, the front of the car, always slippery. And then you've got a very quick left-hander, but it's extremely bumpy. You've got to be very careful not to get a bump at the wrong angle. And across the finish line. And there we go, a run up this wonderful, historic hill at the Festival of Speed of Goodwood.
Welcome back to the Goodwood Festival of Speed, where we have really enjoyed huge entertainment. I mean, what a show, Johnny, it's been. I mean, this is enough to make me stop breathing.
Yes, rather them than me. That's just not my cup of tea, that at all.
Which I find hard to believe, because you love a bit of jeopardy.
Yes, no, my stomach does not cope with that at all.
OK, well, it's nearly time for the hill climb, the competitive element to this whole weekend. Tell us what it's like and how you... Well, I was going to say, there's nothing actually at stake other than the honour and the bragging rights over your mates.
Yes, and again, that's where this part of the competition is really, really interesting. The battery car was the one that went fastest last year. Nick Heidfeld still holds the record. But it is just brilliant because it's so tricky, this track. It's very difficult to expect. One of those back lanes you normally get where the trees are really close to you. If you commit a tractor coming the other way, bit of an issue. This is very, very similar. Very narrow, very tricky, not much grip, but a massive challenge. And at the end of it, I'm the quickest of the weekend.
Good old quick Nick, I'd forgotten that. It's great, isn't it? It's a legacy he's held for some time. OK, I mean, you talk about it punishing mistakes, and we've seen a couple of people have some little shunts up here. We've had 2 crashes so far. Martin Ovington in the Arrows A10.
Yeah, and that's just generally the tyres are not warm enough, and he just spun up.
Crikey. And then Justin Law in the Jaguar XJR12. I mean, it's a lot of damage there, and I would say that was expensive.
Well, it's not cheap. These things aren't cheap, so no, and they're very rare because obviously they're not made anymore. So you've got to sort of reapply that sort of technology all over again to put the wishbones back on the car, the bodywork and everything else. But this is what I said. This is where it's very tricky, and this is where the guys have full commitment to get everything ready. Because basically, when you leave that line towards the first right-hander, you need the tyres already up to temperature from that point on to carry all that speed through. But it's so narrow, as I said before. Make a little mistake. We talk about it in Formula 1. You make a little mistake and you lose time. Here, you lose a lot more than just your time.
How do you prepare yourself mentally for the shootout?
I don't know, because I never actually put myself in that position, but it's a qualifying mentality. So you are really building everything up with your team before you get in the car. You get to that line, you're then looking at the lights, and as soon as those lights go out or the flag drops, away you go, and then you are only feeling what's happening underneath, and then you apply that to the track itself. But this is a proper test for man and machine. There's a lot of pressure, Well, it's a lot of pressure to get through it without damaging it.
OK, it's time for the shootout with our commentary team of John Heidhoff and Alex Brundle.
You two are having far too much fun there, overlooking the Park Straight in the early part of the hill climb. Alex Brundle alongside me, John Heidhoff, and we're just waiting for the last group of cars heading down towards the starting area. They will turn around there, and already I can see our first competitor lined up, the 60 HP, 60 horsepower Mercedes. This is you'll hear us talking about a number of different categories that the cars are in, and they're kind of competing against cars in their other category. Alex, you've driven this. It looks simple. It's far from it.
It certainly doesn't look simple when you're inside the car, especially this area through Morecambe, where we've seen so many high-profile incidents. There's the flint wall. Looks like a dead end as you head up towards that one, and you've got to keep the car underneath you through that final difficult left-hand bend. There is the course record, Nick Heidfeld on a 41.6. And if you get the chance to YouTube, wherever you find your videos online, that record attempt from Nick, it is quite incredible to watch.
This is competitive, so before anybody says anything, yes, there has been someone who's gone up the hill quicker. It was Romain Dumas in the awesome IDR all-electric Volkswagen, but the time that he set was in a practice or qualifying session and not in competition. So by the strict rules, Alex, that wasn't, he's the fastest man up the hill, but that's not the hill record. It's a bizarre twist.
Absolutely. They brought the IDR here in its full Nürburgring record setting specification. Had to dump some batteries out of it because it didn't need that much power, but they needed less weight to take the car all the way up the hill and set some tremendous laps. Last time we were out on Goodwood Hill, but indeed it is still Nick Heidfeld who holds the record up the 1.1 miles and 8 corners I count, although not all of them require your absolute full attention, but most of them do.
I've been coming here for a little while. You've been coming here for a little while. Normally we get to this stage in the weekend and we kind of have a pretty good idea of which car and driver is going to be the best. Hillclimb is one of the oldest forms of competition, and this year we have a proper competition, because I reckon there's 4, possibly 5 cars that could be there or thereabouts depending on what the drivers are looking at. Small margins at the top. We've lost, unfortunately, Justin Law in that Jaguar and the XJR12D. That won't be seen, and that was definitely one of the favourites.
It certainly was one of the favourites. Has won this event previously, Justin Law. Such a shame to see that Jaguar go in the wall. A carbon fibre car, of course, as well, the XJR12, and when you crash a carbon fibre classic, it can be curtains for the car if they can't bond it back together again. Let's just desperately hope that that's not the case in that instance. We have Travis Pastrana, who was fastest in qualifying in the Subaru Impreza WRX, but very, very closely challenged by Rob Bell and Harry King in 2 sets of GT3 cars.
I like the idea that we've got a sort of old versus new here as well, Alex, because there are some classic touring cars, there are some new touring cars.
And that incident for Justin Law, and he was just coming through the exit of the Flint wall. The engine very high and heavy, a big V12 engine in the Jaguar XJR12, and just got away from him. A little bit damp down there as well.
Carnet's seat, named after the old family retainer, and that was an old family retainer back through the years from the Duchess of Portsmouth, the grandmother of the current Duke. Beautiful ornamental building just to driver's left, rumored to have been built from the remains of the parish church hall just down the road. So we've already heard of a couple of cars that won't be running. We'll let you know that when we go. It is sometimes a bit of a movable feast, so bear with us. The weather is as kind as it has been this weekend. This is about perfect.
120 years span the competitors almost of this year's hill climb, but we've seen some incredible performances over the years from all different types of cars. The Silk Cut Jags always featuring very heavily. There's the IDR that we won't see again this year. Romain Dumas, so competitive and impressive. And I know this man, winner, of course, in 1994, said it was the craziest thing he'd ever done in a race car when I asked him about it a few years later. They had tyre warmers, they had qualifying slicks on that. They were still beaten by Nick Heidfeld, and I've never mentioned it to him at all.
No, I bet you haven't. It's a long time for a record in motorsport to stand that Nick Heidfeld went up the hill and left nothing at all in the fast draw. That was emptied out. And Justin Law, driving Jaguars, has been a staple here.
Should mention no contemporary Formula One cars in this event, and that is because it was getting silly, quite frankly, with the speed of those cars up the hill. And we have seen how aggressive drivers can be. Sebastian Loeb doing a fantastic job, of course, and hill climb specials have dominated the event here.
And Sebastian took the hill record at Pikes Peak International Hill Climb. This is a mile, that's 12.5 miles, starts at 9,000 feet and goes up to 14, so very different, and exactly the same formula except fully battery powered for Romain Dumas, who won Pikes Peak in 2018 and smashed the hill record there. Then the car came here and he did, and it's spooky to hear the air that's moving. I was on Pikes Peak in 2018 and saw that record taken. Sadly, I wasn't here. I would have liked to have had those 2 ticks.
Back here again, of course, this weekend, Romain Dumas behind the wheel of the Glickenhaus hypercar. We spoke to him, didn't we, though, earlier on in the weekend, John?
Yes, and he's going to be a bit careful, because that car, as soon as it's finished here, it is going to Monza for a WEC World Endurance Championship race. It's the last of the warm-up races before the Le Mans 24 Hours, which this year, of course, has been moved into August. Come on, then. at the end of this, who's the big names? Who are we going to be looking for?
I think, honestly, anybody in a rally spec car, four-wheel drive always goes well up the hill. An electric component always helps with that instant torque that electric cars can deliver. But in the end, I think the GT3 machinery, John, may well be the cars to beat. Those ABS systems, those clever traction control trickery systems can deal with the lumps and bumps of the hill.
And we have the new 992 Carrera Cup car in the hands of British GT sensation Harry King. He was leaving great big lines of Michelin rubber and really hanging it all out when we saw him earlier on today. I think the gloves are off this year, and I really think this is going to be worth looking at. And just remember, with all of that variety that we've been talking about here, that some of the first cars, some of the middle cars that we see, they won't be challenging for the King of the Hill title and the fastest time today, but they are running for, as Johnny Herbert rightly mentioned earlier on, they're running for pride within their own sections. And the first car that comes out will be George Wingard in the Mercedes 60 horsepower, and this is one of the Brooklands era car. Later we'll see the awesome Subaru that Travis Pastrana is going to drive. He is not a man to, take things easily, let me say. He's another man with Pikes Peak experience as well, and he's brought that Subaru here. We'll see it later on. But what a classic 1903 machine in dark red with the skinny tyres ready to go. And 2021 at the hill climb gets underway with a little bit of a coffer splitter and almost a stall.
They'll have to give that plenty of space, won't they, as it goes up the hill. The first car to have a gate change gearbox, this 1903 Mercedes 68-piece pressed steel chassis, honeycomb radiators. It must have looked pretty impressive back when it originally came out. This thing's been clocked at 89 miles an hour in competition with Woodward.
And remember, hill climb in the days of this car was such an important thing for the manufacturers, because they weren't just talking about speed, they were talking about reliability, and showing the ability to get up a hill at speed was, if you like, the Instagram, the Twitter. It was their publicity in those days.
Still in the days where you're outperforming a horse, essentially, and they are showing what they can do to a driver and a co-driver, both making their way up the hill, and the complexity of operating these cars. You assume, don't you, all vehicles are going to be vaguely the same with the pedals in the right position, but when you go as far back as this, it just is not so.
Well, and also potentially having to advance or retard the ignition on the steering wheel. We think of Formula One cars now about having complicated steering wheels. Of course they do. But in these days, this was the absolute dawn of motoring. You didn't just invent a car, you had to invent a spark plug. You had to invent a radiator. And all of these little control systems were in their infancy. 96.65 and 60 miles an hour at the top of the hill. That is a Brooklands car, so let's keep an eye on that. We now move to, keep an eye on that time, Robert Blakemore in the Aston Martin Ulster. We were hoping to have two of these, but one literally had a wheel fall off earlier in the weekend. But Robert has been driving this car with some gusto.
Certainly has, taking up the hill, and the other car caused a little bit of a red flag earlier on in the weekend, but the Aston Martin Ulster makes its way up, the Mon car of old, of course, and driven very, very ably by Robert Blakemore as he makes his way across the line. A little bit of fluid coming out of the front, but they do tend to drop a little titchy bit of water and oil sometimes. These can make it a bit exciting for the competitors following on.
Still a little bit of dampness at the top of the hill as well. I think there's an elegance about that Aston Martin Ulster. I really do. A real stalwart of the Goodwood Hill Climb meeting in the Festival of Speed up next in the Ferrari 166 Barchetta. This is Sally Mason-Starren, and she has been here every single year since it started. I interviewed her the very first one when we did the radio station here, and This car's been here a couple of times, and she's been getting quicker and quicker all the way through her runs up the hill.
Car that won its class in the Mille Miglia in 1950, came 4th overall, finished 7th overall in the Targa Florio again in the same year. And Sally Mason-Stewart makes her way across the line to jump to the top.
She should go to the top, and does indeed. Remember, we are looking at cars of very different abilities. The Delage Benque is next up for Alexander Boswell. You know, these cars, to me, just show how things are moving along. Look at how much lower down this car is from the Mercedes that we saw earlier on. And yet, we're not moving so far in terms of years. And Alexander is hanging that out.
Certainly is. Lots more aerodynamic shape. Look at the shroud ahead of the driver as well, just to move that air. The world's first V12 engine of 2-litre capacity inside the Delage. Alexander Boswell finds a new limit then. 13.4 seconds clear of his previous competitors in the Delage.
Now to Ben Collings in the Bitson Benz. Now this is a huge engine. Oh, brilliant run through the first corner. We've moved to 19.09 now in this car. When we were in these early days of motoring, the engines just got bigger. That was how you got more horsepower.
21.5 litres, John.
Just a voiturette.
This motor, you could, you know, if you short money in London, you might have to live in smaller capacity than that. It's,
I think I'll have to, actually.
It's 200 HP, Blitz and bend, sticks aplenty on the right-hand side. And, oh, goodness me, he's hauling it through the flint wall.
Go on, Ben. Through Carnet's seat. This has actually been catching more people out than you might think. This run up to the top of the hill through the right-hander. The actual seat is just off to the driver's left and goes very wide towards the hay bales on driver's right, but Ben Collings goes through 69.02. That was about where we saw, and you noticed this, Alex, the fluid going down on the circuit. Now, we're just waiting for the next car. Whilst we wait for that to go, let's head to Tom Clarkson at the top of the hill.
My goodness, it's mental down here at the start. So much excitement. Listen to the noise. Everyone is loving it. We've just spoken to Travis Pastrana. Go for it. Over to you, Adam. Enjoy.
James Wood at the wheel of
the next car, and Tom, excuse me, was at the bottom of the hill, not at the top. James Wood on at the hill now with a Tipo B Alfa Romeo P3, and this car is another one of the Brooklands category cars, but again, look at how things are moving on. I love the pace of development in these days. You've even got little faired in rear view mirrors on the fairing.
1935, the Alfa Romeo P3, centre line single seat Grand Prix car created by Vittorio Giano. Makes its way across the line again, moving that bar forward. But notice how, as we get through the years, the increments are just moving down as we understand our motoring a little better. Patrick Blakely-Egmond understands that thing, doesn't he?
PBE, behind the wheel of anything, means take 2 steps back from the edge of the circuit. This is a Fraser-Nash Shelsley single-seater. Shelsley was, of course, one of the great hill climb venues in the UK, which will probably meet in the world as well. And this Fraser-Nash is low, it's nimble, and it's very, very powerful. And with Pat driving this, I think this is going to be a very good time.
Long-time member of the Vintage Sports Car Club, prepares these cars as well, and he knows his business. He's absolutely soaring at the steering wheel under the through the flint wall.
He's looking for the top time in the Brooklands category. Gets a little bit of a slide on, just trying to keep the power up. Every time you have a little wiggle, it's slow. Oh, he's not made it. He's gone into second, nearly 90 miles an hour though, the top speed. Now, coming up next, let's mix things up a little bit. The Tyrrell Cosworth 012 in the Benetton colours. Ian Simmons behind the wheel. And this is a car that your family knows quite well.
Certainly do. This is one of Dad's, the Tyrrell 012. And Ian Simmons, a prolific, historic racer, particularly in historic Formula One. This is a beautiful, beautiful car and a beautiful livery.
Look at how minimal it is around the front end. You don't have all those almost multiple razor blade type wings on the front. It's a single plane. You can see the suspension. Look at the way the bodywork is shaped pretty much just around the driver, and look how much of the driver we can see.
Certainly can see a lot, and it's the real tendency of cars of that era, as well as legs in front of that axle centre line at the front. This particular chassis raced 4 times, best result of 6th in the Dutch Grand Prix. Ian Simmons jumps to the top in the Tyrrell, somewhat unsurprisingly.
Yeah, and well, I was just about to say, we haven't had a touring car yet, and how wonderful that we see the 320 STW. This is Matthew Hull in this car. This has had a few people driving it down through the years, including someone who I commentated on in the American Le Mans series, Didier de Radigas, who was a former 250 motorcycle world champion, had a big accident on 2 wheels at Mosport, as it was then. He drove this car. This has got great history, and this is a lovely little weapon of his.
Certainly is an iconic car, winner of the 1995 Nürburgring 24 Hours, the 96 Spa 24 Hours, and that iconic BMW E shape that it's carrying with it up the hill, and the Bastos livery as well that goes so synonymously with that Belgian race.
2 races on the Nordschleife today, and this is a car that has Nürburgring history as well, and a decent time here. Now, it's not just about race cars here, although we have got a race driver in this. Richard Westbrook, who was a Ford GT driver, has been replaced by Paul Swift here, and that is Swifty. That's not Westy's helmet in there. Paul Swift, second generation precision driver. I think that's the way he likes to be described. I've worked with Paul down through the years. He is actually a very good racing driver, and very, as you might expect, very exacting. This Ford Mustang is a road car, and it is the new Mark Ii GT. This is Ford's all battery, so BEV, battery electric vehicle. The acceleration is phenomenal, made all the more spooky by the fact it doesn't make any noise.
We've seen Instant Torque work so well on the hill. He's only a 10th down as he heads through the second sector in a road car. 3 sectors here we should mention. The first one comes up on the way down to Moulcombe, the second one through the Flint Wall, and the final, of course, as Paul Swift crosses the line in the Mustang Mach-E. Can he go to the top? No, he can't, to the tune of 0.6 of a second, but a pretty impressive run. He was competing with a Tyrrell F1 car, John.
Yeah, and that's technology. Let's head back across to the United States. We're honouring 2 maestros of motorsport this weekend in the shape of Roger Penske and Mario Andretti, and the Indianapolis 500 is the big auto race, of course, there, and specials were built for the 2.5-mile bank oval. This is one of them, the Curtis Craft with the Offenhauser engine. Geraint Owen he's really been enjoying himself this weekend. You could not get a more different track from Indianapolis at 2.5 miles around, and 500 miles to 1.1 miles here on the hill.
126.2 miles per hour average that machine did around the Indy 500. Can you imagine it? I certainly cannot. This, John, I told you earlier on, it is my favourite car here this weekend.
Of all the cars, why does Alex Brundle want to take home this extraordinary looking thing?
The Bill Thomas Cheetah was built in 1963 to take on the Cobras. It's got bits of the never raced Corvette Grand Sport in it. It is just a monstrous lightweight Cobra destroying machine, and they make replicas of this thing, and it's just a 60s GT monster.
Look at the length of that bonnet. Look at the air filters out the top, because there are carburetors under there, and if you come from an age where fuel injection has been king, that's before fuel injection, sticking out into the airflow to get as much air as you can into the engine, because the more air you get in, the more fuel you can pump in, the bigger fire you can have in the sun.
It was all about that. It was all about big V8s and torque in this section of motorsport history. And 9/10 of the pace. Duncan Pittaway driving that very ably indeed. Another one of our Formula 1 cars. Here's the Shadow we saw Damon Hill in earlier on the weekend.
Ewan Sergeson in this car, built in Northampton. Not actually in the Shadow factory, but just around the corner at John Thompson's place. The DN1 in the Graham Hill Racing Team colours. You'll notice quite a few of the Formula cars are running on treaded tyres because of the conditions at the top of the hill, but this one's on full slicks, so that's pretty great.
It certainly is. To get temperature, you want those tread blocks moving around. Often the trick here is to run on absolutely the softest compound you have, and that can be wet.
I'm just looking at that. I wonder if they're very warm wets, actually, as they came across. Right, now here's probably one of the most expensive cars we'll see on the hill. Ferrari 250 GT, short wheelbase, SWB. Emanuele Pirro driving. It's not just an ordinary SWB 250. This is called the bread van, and you can see why.
These series of Ferraris named after the displacement of a single cylinder. It's a 250 car with that big extra bread van on the back. House captain Emanuele Pirro hustling it up the hill. Let's see what the 250 short wheelbase can do.
Nice. So it goes to the top. So 12 cylinders, 250cc each. That's a 3-litre 12-cylinder car, and it sounds wonderful. Here's a car that I remember very well, or at least one like it. My first Le Mans in 1989. The Sauber Mercedes C9. Kenny Atchison came second that year, 4 or 5 laps behind the winning number 63. This car was actually built from a spare tub, because that's the way Mercedes did things even then, and it goes to the top.
And a monster run from Kenny Atchison in that car, chassis C1A, and that was the spare one when he raced it back in the day, but he is loving his old Group C machinery.
Yeah, that's also raced with Mauro Baldi in the 1990 championship in the C9s.
And so we split the shootout now, John, because there is a section now. We talked about these cars racing in their own group. There's going to be a sequence of saloon cars now taking on the hill, taking on the full shootout, but racing against each other as well for the saloon shootout on it.
I like that idea. This is, I think, the car that we all wished our dad was cool enough or well off enough to have, wasn't it, around this time, when they were probably driving other British Leyland items instead. 1984 Steve Soper colours on this SD1 Vitesse, the Hetterlite machine. The Ken Clark driving it. Hetterlite, piston manufacturer from my neck of the woods, up in the northeast of England.
One of 3 cars produced for Rally Sprint, would you believe, among other things. Ken Clark making the most of this machine, having to deal with a little bit of roll as well through the final part. TWR plates denote Tom Walkinshaw Racing, of course.
Do you know what? Doesn't that still look a fresh shape? Pininfarina designed beautiful piece of kit. And remember that 61.8, that's important as far as the touring cars. Now, how about some controversy for you, young Mr. Brundle? Because this is Tom Andrew in an Alfa Romeo 155. It's in the colours of Gabriele Tarquini from the British Touring Car Championship, although this machine raced a period in the Italian Championship. Now, why the controversy? Nothing about that. The Alfa Romeo 155, when it was released in this country, had a special edition called a Silverstone. And the Silverstone had that big rear wing in the boot. You could fit it yourself if you wanted to. That allowed the race car to have a bigger wing. And so they started the homologation specials in British touring cars. And I know that because Gary Robertshaw, who's now one of the lead engineers for United Autosports, he sold these up in Newcastle on the West Road in period.
The days when, of course, you had to make enough road cars to allow you to race the production special, and raced it was in the 1994 BTCC Championship. Not this car, but one like it. Comes across the line then in the hands of Tom Andrew, and he's around 10 seconds down from the absolute best, but remains the fastest of the saloon cars.
Now, we've got a couple of absolute British classics to go here. And the Mark II Jaguar, much beloved of both police and criminals in their days. And if you watch the movies of the 1960s and possibly even into the 70s, so many of these were horribly treated. And it looks like Grant Williams is going for the spectacular rather than the speed.
They're still extremely active, aren't they, at the St Mary's, at the Goodwood Revival as a historic racing car. And it always amazes me how successful these big Mark II Jags are against Lotus Cortinas, against Minis, against Ford Galaxies and all of the different cars that you get together racing later on in the year at Goodwood at the Revival. And a quite amazing piece of kit when you're sitting, I can tell you, behind the steering wheel of a classic Mini to see around you. It looks like a boat, John, when you race it. It's quite unbelievable in its size.
Right, remember the time we were looking for earlier on. This is another one of the touring cars. As I say, I don't think Grant is going to get too close to that noise. Over 67, 68 seconds. That puts him third in the touring car category.
So the time we're looking for in the touring car to take the best of the saloon cars is a 61.8, John, and that's being held at the moment by Ken Clark.
Julian Thomas now in a RS Cosworth 500. This the three-door, three-window version of the RS 500. There was a V8 version in South Africa which had the extra window in the back, the different shaped car. What a glorious looking machine. The Caliber Andy Rouse livery on this car. The problem was that these were the ultimate, in some ways they were the ultimate customer car when Ford brought these out, Alex, and it meant that if you had one of these, because it was a multi-class championship, any of them could win any week. So people from other championships who dominated other classes within the championship were more likely to be overall champion.
Julian Thomas, the man who is responsible and owns the company V-Box, data acquisition company that work with so many customer and club races. He's been using that technology, I know, to good effect to use the 560 brake horsepower in that Ford Sierra Cosworth.
Yeah, and he's just done a 54.08, so of course the top touring car classes. I said new and old, we're getting through this. Now this is one of the newer cars, Super 2000 regulations, Mark Jones in the Renault Laguna, and I'm sorry but I have to be picky here because I was part of the British touring cars at this time. Those wheels should be yellow, Mark, yellow, yellow, yellow. I'll zip my anorak up now.
That's been bothering you all
weekend. It has.
Nescafe Libya, I think it looks beautiful and I think he's driving it very well indeed. You should stop complaining.
Front wheel drive, of course, this one, as opposed to what we saw in the Cosworth 2-litre, producing, well, what do you like? About 300, maybe a little bit more horsepower. That's what they were claiming at the time, but depending on who you talk to, it could have been a heck of a lot more than that. Checkered flag is out as he goes across the line. He goes on a 56.51.
Yeah, just missing out on the best time set so far by Julian Thomas in the previous run. The Sierra Cosy.
Next one. If you like big V8s, and they've been at Townsville this weekend in the Repco V8 Championship. Rick Wood, Holden Commodore. This is an ex-Rick Kelly car, although not in Rick's colours. It's actually been put back into the Holden Racing Team colours, and Rick likes this car. It makes a great noise. Not sure it's quite suited for hill climb, but nobody's told Rick.
They are monsters, these, and there's been so much crossover over the years between V8 supercars and NASCAR, and for good reasons. Anyone you talk to who's driven one of these cars tells you that they are just animals to get behind the steering wheel of. I think this is the most beautiful period of these cars. This is the 2011 Holden Commodore.
Yeah. My colleague Richard Crailsey will be salivating over that as it goes across the line. Plenty of interest in the timing screen.
That'll be 53.1, and he will go then to the top of the saloon car table.
Now, I said some classic British metal. We've had the big Jag. How about the little Mini in the Longman's colours? This is the Patrick Motorsport car. Now, this is interesting. Not a Mini Cooper. This is a 1275 GT, lifting and cocking the right wheel through the first corner, and this is Nick Swift, and you know Nick very, very well. That flat-fronted car looks fantastic.
Nick, the absolute mini master. He prepares these cars, he builds them, he's raced them for absolutely years. Another star of historic racing, and he is absolutely ringing this GT out.
Watch the brake lights going into the flint wall. Was there any kind of brake in there? I don't think there was. He said he was going to try it flat.
He asked me earlier on the weekend, he said, Alex, is the flint wall still a bit wet? Because I'm going to do it flat this time. And then he sent me a text to the top of the hill. Sorry, mate, I whooshed out. But that looked like it was flat out to me for Nick Swift. He's been outperforming that little engine all weekend.
Just brilliant. And that, now, is that the quickest of the touring cars? 93 miles an hour is extraordinary. He's beaten some bigger engine machines, but he doesn't go to the top of the touring car group.
He'll do well to take on that big V8 Holden Commodore, but certainly a very impressive performance. This is the 2019 Chevrolet Camaro, the more contemporary NASCAR, wheeled by Jack Tetley, and it's been wheeled exceptionally proficiently all weekend.
Just for those who are of a cinematographic intent, cool trickles near on the side of there, and Tom Cruise was here earlier on today. Days of Thunder right here in the south of England.
Time to find out, is he dropping the hammer through intermediate 2? And he is a little bit down on where they'd been previously, but to be expected. Look at him dragging it. Oh, and he's a little bit on the grass, and he's lost it on the way at the top of the hill. Big. Goodness me.
That's big. That's getting on for 100 miles an hour up there in that car, and the big V8 has gone around, so there will be a hold. The Rory Butcher Toyota Corolla, which is sitting at the bottom of the hill, and we have a red flag. That was a very big incident, so that'll stop things for a little while. So let's just, well, we have the driver out. That's the best news.
It's good to see Jack Tetley jump straight out of that car. But
it's going to take some moving, Alec, because there's quite a few bits hanging around it as well.
And that, John, is why they run the cars absolutely one at a time.
Yes.
At this stage of the hill climb.
Smart.
Because they know that this can happen. These drivers are pushing absolutely to the limit to try to take hill climb honours away. And as you correctly say, that is going to take some moving.
Look at how the sheet metal has been pulled back. That is literally just a single thickness of sheet metal. You can see it bent towards the number on the right-hand side of the car. Underneath that, the grey bits around the wheel, that's effectively the tube frame, the chassis. The engine is mounted in a subframe at the front of that, and then that tube goes all the way through and builds the car, and you just hang the body panels on it. So they're not as heavy as they look, these cars, and they're quite twitchy, Alex.
And he's just going to put a wheel. He's just going to put a wheel on the grass on the way in.
And
as Karun said so much earlier on in the broadcast, it is so bumpy when you get in there. But I think it's just that wheel on the grass. He's got on the dirty stuff, and it's never going to come back from there. As soon as there's not much grip out there anyway, let alone right out wide on the grass. And I'd imagine he's just absolutely wringing the road out to take as much throttle as he can through between those hay bales in that final corner.
I hate to say this, but that was a decent time, even with the spin, and he was so close to the finish. Peeled back like a can opener. Exactly the right thing to say. So this is going to cause a wee delay, but we will get back to racing, or competing at least, as quickly as possible. See the marshals, and thank you very much indeed, by the way, to all of our motor racing marshals. As a proud ambassador for the British Motor Racing Marshals Club, I will say thank you to all of our volunteers here at the Festival of Speed this weekend, whether they've been on the hill, flagging, setting things up, or even helping us park our cars. It's been immaculately run and organised once again. So more than a little golf clap from us here. I think there's going to be quite a long delay here, which means we can just think a little bit about what we've seen. So Kenny Atchison with the top overall time, and the best of the touring cars
at the moment still sits as the Holden Commodore, I believe, and so we will have a look at what's going on a little bit later on.
Rick Wood and Nick Swift. Now I'm talking about the cars here, but we've got little and large. Nick Swift, let's start with you. fully committed. What a great run.
Oh, I can't tell you how awesome it is. It's just fantastic. I managed to go through the flip wall without braking. I couldn't do it flat, but and I think that just picked up a little bit there. A bit more commitment in the second corner. Oh, it's mega. I love it.
If you had another run, is there any more time? Is there anything left out there?
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, if I was lucky enough to be invited back in the future, I think I could definitely give Rick a bit more of a run for his money.
Rick, let's come to you.
Yeah.
In the wonderful Commodore.
Yeah.
What a time, 53.13.
It's my best of the weekend. I've slowly been learning it, cutting corners as much as I dare. Kept it flat through the last corner, which I've never managed to do until then. So just a grip issue. You know, it's too much power and not enough grip. So, but how much fun? You can't have any more fun than that.
Isn't that what every racing driver wants? More power than grip?
I do. I do. Nick would love that. But no, I mean, it's just, I steer it off the rear wheels. It's just really hard to do here because we haven't got 10 laps to warm it up. So it brings another dimension to it. You can't push as hard as you like because you've got no grip. But that's what it's all about, Hillclimb.
Rick and Nick, well done. Beautiful drives.
Thank you very much.
So that is Rick Wood with the fastest time, and that was Ed Foster asking the question. So the saloon car shootout, this is intermediate. Rick Wood, top, with the 53.13 second. Then the Ford Sierra Cosworth from Julian Thomas. Then Mark Jones in the Laguna. And look at the Mini. Look at the cars that are behind that Mini. 56.62. He's a smidgen away from being in the top three.
Brilliant time from Nick Swift. Interesting situation for Rick Wood at the moment because I believe he runs the Nissan Skyline GTR, which is still
Correct.
to come with a very, very fast Jake Hill behind the wheel of it. He's been absolutely rocket in that car throughout the hill climb session, throughout the qualifying, and so he may well be ousted by a car that he owns and runs, but still it's excellent job for Rick Wood, and Julian Thomas well in there as well in the Sierra Cosy.
I love the variety that we've got in this saloon car category. Absolutely joyous. It really is. A beautiful weekend. Had a tiny bit of a splash on Friday afternoon. It looked worse than it was. It didn't rain for that long, but it did dirty up the track and slowed things down a wee bit. But Saturday and Sunday, it's been great as far as the weather's concerned. Let's go down to the start where Tom Clarkson is reporting for us.
Well, it's burst my bubble. We had so much excitement down here at the start line. My eardrums were being deafened as people were warming their engines. They were warming, of course, the tyres to get off the line, and it's all gone quiet. Drivers out of their cars, as you can see, and everyone taking a quick bathroom break. But I did just want to catch up with Sam Hancock, big friend of Goodwood. And Sam, when you have a red flag like this, you've had to build up, and then suddenly, where are you at?
I don't know, tell me about it. It's a weird feeling, because actually it's been such a relaxed weekend, and drivers in the change room saying how nice it is to come to a semi-competitive weekend with no pressure. But there is a sense of pressure build-up for this final shootout. So I have to confess to taking it a bit more seriously. I was sat in the car, strapped in, helmet on, iPhone out, looking at onboard videos from my previous runs, thinking, oh, I could take that a gear higher, and that a gear lower, whatever. And now you've just got to somehow let all that go, then find it again, build it back up.
And I'm near the front of the queue, so I'm going to have to kind of zone back in pretty quickly,
like
I think.
Tennis players at Wimbledon, isn't it? The rain's come down, we go off the court, now we're coming back on the court. Look, tell us a little bit about this motor. It looks beautiful. What's it like to drive?
They're just fantastic. I think massively underrated. There's a core group of people out there that really appreciate the M1 Pro car for what it is, and I get it. You've got a mid-engine 3.5 litre straight six, open pipes, phenomenal sound. They throw flames out the back. You've got that induction noise that you hear from the driver's seat. The noise is superb. They've got a 5-speed manual gearbox. Quite wide track, quite long wheelbase, so plenty of grip. Wide slick tyres, although we're on wets today just to get a bit of traction because we haven't got time to warm anything up. But it's just just, it's as analog and raw and exciting and sort of almost emotional, actually. I've been lucky to race a couple of these, and they're fabulous.
It's a big car to go up this hill as well, right?
Yeah, but it's quite well suited because it's got a little bit of ride height compared to other things. A little bit of ride height, so some compliance over the crown and the road, and just enough weight to roll and kind of load up the corner that you need grip from. So they do work quite well. Yeah, I love it.
Look, it's great to speak to you.
Thank you.
Good luck. Now, look, we're just going to go back down the road here because there's a car I want to speak to you about. Yes, we've got the front runners. We've got Travis Pastrana, obviously. Rob Bell in the McLaren 728. Love that car. And Harry King, the future of endurance racing, I feel. But this car here, Ian, come in. Now, this is the Fiesta Pikes Peak, and it's driven by Ian Gwynn. Ian, tell me a little bit about the history of this car. It's finished on the podium at Pikes Peak, hasn't it?
Yeah, it did. It finished second in 2009. It was built by Olsberg's MSC in Sweden, and it was actually commissioned by Ford USA to do Pikes Peak. Their target was actually to do a sub 10-minute run in the car, which I think it's capable of doing, but it actually suffered turbo problems at the actual event, and Marcus finished second.
Marcus Gronholm.
Marcus Gronholm, yeah.
Now, look, what is it like up the hill here? Less than 10 minutes.
I hope so. I've driven the car once before, and then obviously 3 times here. It certainly gets your attention. It's a bit of a beast of a thing. It's all mechanical. It's mechanical diffs and everything in the car. It's absolutely fantastic fun. I mean, a really big grin. Yeah. Big
and
grin.
Ian, how competitive are you? We've got the red flag. How are you feeling? I did see you nip behind a tree. I don't know what you're doing.
We'll keep that to ourselves.
But how are you feeling? Are you nervous?
No, not at all. No, pretty relaxed, pretty chilled about it. So we're all here for fun, apparently. So
yeah, apparently you're all racing drivers.
We
are.
Well, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
okay, well, look, best of luck.
Thank
all
you.
Quiet. This is the quiet before the storm.
Yeah, it is, Tom. Thank you. Tom Clarkson down there at the start. Ian Gwynn, just magnificent. That car struggled at the top of the mountain at Pikes Peak, as all of them do. Once you get over 12,000 feet, there's no foliage. Once you get to 14,000 feet, where the finish is 14,117 or something like that, 115, I think, you can barely breathe yourself, and therefore neither can the cars. In fact, some of the drivers actually have oxygen at the top of Pikes Peak. Extraordinary stuff. And before that, the M1 Pro car. How about this? Imagine this today. Formula One drivers, the weekend of a Formula One race, drawing lots for one of those cars and a one-make championship. So think the Mobil 1 Porsche Super Cup, except with all of the Formula One drivers in. That chassis there was Elio De Angelis, and we lost Carlos Reuterman. His battle with illness came to an end. What a fighter he was, both on and off the track. He drove one of those cars when he was a Formula One driver. It just wouldn't happen. Let's go down to Kenny Atchison at the top of the hill.
Kenny, if I told you at the start of this weekend that you'd be leading the shootout halfway through with a time of 52.27, would you have taken that?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm really pleasantly surprised that I did a 52. I think my first run was 83, and the guy behind me caught me up on Thursday, but I've never been here, so I knew I would get quicker. But the car's just really nice to drive. It's got good downforce. I haven't raced or driven a racing car for 25 years, so it's way better than me. And I mean, Jochen won in a similar car, the shootout, but I think with a 47 4 or 5 years ago. So obviously there's more in the car than what I'm able to produce. But very happy, and it's in one piece. Yeah, it's cool.
The Cyber Mercedes, the C9, it was one of the greatest sports cars.
Yeah.
How is it bringing it up the hill?
Well, I think it was probably made more for Le Mans without the chicanes. I mean, back in 1989, Jochen won the race. I was very fortunate, we finished second. We had a good dice till about an hour to go, and then I got stuck in fifth gear. But the car was great. I mean, there we raced Jaguars, and we were doing about 385k. So I don't know, maybe I do 120 miles an hour here, so it's, it's not made for a hill climb.
Kenny, thank you very much.
It's been great, thank you.
127, Kenny Atchison at the top of the hill. Phenomenal cars at Le Mans. You really felt them in your sternum at the moment. they went by you. It was a marvellous thing. Confirming then that Kenny Atchison, still the soft-spoken accent of the Sauber Mercedes C9 driver, with just about a second in hand over Rick Wood's Holden Commodore that leads the saloon car category. Then it's Julian Thomas, Mark Jones in the Renault Laguna, the Swift by name and nature Mini. Further down, some heavy machinery down there that the Mini has put behind it. Call the Mini. Ken Clark in the Rover had a good run. Paul Swift took the first of the road cars effectively that we've seen up there, the Mark Ii GT, and some of the Brooklands era's cars down at the bottom of the timing screen, but fighting among themselves there as well. Alexander Boswell and the Delage Beckwith, the best of those. Well, it's not just been about what has been happening on the hill here. Plenty of other automotive excitement to go around since Thursday, extended to a 4-day meeting this year.
Jamie's quip. So make a big cheer as they launch skyward. High five for Josh Morris there. He likes a bit of that. Here we go, down with Bay. Yeah, tweaks it out, looks at the crowd. Some ladies and gents just swooned and hit the deck over there as they got eyeballed Jamie's quip. Oh my!
Oh, brilliant stuff.
Front door.
Plenty of good stuff in the air as well as on the track. I don't see you doing that on motorcycles, Alex.
I was actually. I'm actually in the background there. You can't see me. I've just gone. I was too fast. But it's not just about race cars here at the Goodwood Festival of Speed. So much action to take in. You just can't have all of it, can you? Over a day here, you can't see everything.
No, it actually, I mean, I know why it's now 4 days here, because if you want to see everything, there are several different areas. It's not just the hill. There's the concourse, there's all the displays, there's the Sky Sports F1 Formula 1 paddock as well. And nice to see the two-wheel guys. By the way, we've had some phenomenal TT Grand Prix, MotoGP, and also superbikes going up the hill as well, and some very impressive machinery around for the last 3 days.
And also some automotive manufacturers able to just display their wares, and it's been flat out on the rally course as well.
Designed by the late Hannah Mikkola, and a variety in the rally machinery as much as we've seen on the hill. Can you believe that that is now a 10-year-old Skoda that's running around there? It still looks fresh. Looks like one of the new R2 machines. Subaru, of course. Well, they made their name in rallying, didn't they? Quirky little four-wheel drive pickup trucks, and epic battles in Group A, as it was with the Evo from Mitsubishi. And you can see by the status of some of these cars, Alex, that they weren't being driven kindly.
Challenging rally course this, certainly, for the owners and the invited drivers of these cars. And as you say, toying with the edges of the circuit surface as they demonstrate and compete in the cars.
In one of the early years, I went in a Peugeot in this and did the notes, and just about kept my breakfast down, because nobody was hanging about. Again, the same sort of pride, the same sort of bragging rights going with this. Mitsubishi with the Lancer, the variety of Evos down through the years with those great battles. But also some oddities as well. Golf, Volkswagen Motorsport being involved. Built the Golf WRC car, which never actually competed in the World Rally Championship, but they used the engine in the back of an LMP2 car at Le Mans. And you can't have a rally stage without a Mark I Escort.
Certainly cannot. A little bit of two-wheel drive rally action. They've been drifting, but we've been drifting on the Hillclimb too, with all sorts of different action. And Driftkana for the first time at Goodwood. We've been having a look at this action, and they've been getting close and perhaps slightly too close to the barrels on occasion, and riding the flint wall with the front of those cars, John.
The idea, by the way, this is not knock the barrel down. You're meant to get we used to play kick the can when I was a young'un up in the northeast. This is not what it's about. You're supposed to get as close as you can, and you get points for that, how close you are, and the style, and how long you can keep it sideways. That is the whole point. And round the flint wall, the whole idea was that you could ride the wall and try and get the nose in towards the wall, and then into the parking spot at the end of the run at the top of the hill. It's fair to say some people did that a little better than others. So a cross between drifting and auto testing. And if you've ever started with your competition licence, quite a few people start in auto test. A lot of people never get any further because they enjoy it so much. It's a good way to get into motorsport.
Certainly looks fun to me. Still better than my parking in Chichester last night, but they were...
and you tried to let the car do that as well.
It does it itself, John, I promise. They certainly don't do that themselves, by the way. Although there's plenty of modification to these cars. Look at the amount of steering angle available to those cars. Hydraulic handbrakes as well, of course, to make the drifting action happen.
BMWs were always, as a standard car, very popular for drifting because they had slightly longer steering arms. You can see some of them have even had the wheel arches modified as well. Now, all of these have got even longer than standard. The little GT86 looked a bit short, looks a bit shorter and just a little bit wiggly, and perhaps not exactly. The Japanese started this up in the hills outside the big cities, and if you've ever been to the Fuji Motor Speedway, if you go in the back way, never go back the back way on the Friday or Saturday night, because there's unofficial drifting all the way up the hill in between the speed cameras. I promise you, it's true. So the clean-up continues at the top of the hill, and fantastic work by everybody. It's not just getting all the bits of car and the metal and everything else from that. The straw bales have to be replaced as well. Now, at the top of the hill, we can go to fantastic Le Mans driver for Audi. Here's Emanuele Pirro.
Emanuele Pirro, you've just come up the hill in the beautiful bread van in a great time of 58.63. Well done.
Yeah, thank you, but I'm not really in the shootout mode because this car, it's too beautiful to be, to be driven at 100%. But I enjoyed it. For me, especially with the historic cars of the 60s, you know, the very old ones, the aim is to drive the best I can, not really the fastest I can. So happy that the lap time is okay, but didn't really think so much about the lap time. It's just a beautiful car to drive.
Now, you drive it so beautifully at the Revival. It must be such a pleasure around the Goodwood Motor Circuit.
Yeah, and you know, these cars or those cars are perfect for the Goodwood circuit. You know, not so many heavy braking zones, just long corners that you can power drift, and this is what I mean, driving well, the best you can, and not so much the fastest you can. You know, you can really produce a beautiful power slide, a millimeter close to the apex, a millimeter close to the edge of the track, and this gives you a lot of satisfaction.
Emanuele, thank you so much. Let's go down to the start line and see how Tom is getting on.
So there is the start line. What you're looking back, this massive asphalt, this is where they warm all the tyres from here to the start to get ready to go. And as you can see, the drivers are now putting their balaclavas back on. The tension is starting to build. We heard from Sam Hancock a little bit earlier about what you do during a red flag. Well, it's all starting to happen. We're going to have the engines firing up and all of those donuts and wheel spin to get ready for the off. It's about to happen very soon, David.
So thanks to Ed at the top and Tom at the start, the bottom of the hill. Emanuele Pirro, could he look any more Italian? Only Roberto Mancini better as in his Italianness this weekend.
Your Grace, a few weeks ago, you probably didn't think this event was going to go ahead, but what a fantastic weekend. I think from all the Goodwood supporters, everyone here, a huge thank you.
No, well, we're absolutely thrilled it's happened, obviously, and the team here have done a fantastic job to get it
already in the time we've had. So, and it's just great to see so many people back here, everyone having a good time, everyone smiling, and the weather's sort of behaved as well. So, no, it's been fantastic. We've really loved it. So pleased everybody else has.
Now, you're a motorsport fan. Surely this must be one of the most exciting parts of the weekend for you, the shootout.
It is. No, I mean, it's a big part of it. Right from the beginning, obviously, the fastest time of the hill has been the whole point of the whole thing. So it's great to see who can be quickest and where everybody is, how they're placed against each other.
Your Grace, thank you very much.
Pleasure, thanks.
Marvellous work by everybody concerned to put this on. No event, of course, last year. The Aston Martin DBX, one of the safety and medical cars that Aston Martin have provided to Formula One this year, swapping and changing race on race with Mercedes-Benz.
Certainly is. We enjoy that car through the race weekends, really giving it some around the Formula One courses of the world. Let's have a look at that course again. The first corner, part of a double right-hand section onto the Park Straight. Here is Moulcombe. If you can see it and you haven't braked, you brake too late. The flint wall you can get a full eyeful of as you make your way up to Carner's seat. And then the hill climb finish, where we've just seen that incident, 1.16 miles. And there is that average speed, over 100 miles an hour from Nick Heidfeld. And when we see some onboard cameras, which we will have a little bit later on, I want you to put yourself in the car and try and imagine what that feels like.
Nope, don't want to do it. Don't want to do it.
I'll put you in the car and show you what that feels like. Well, I won't, because we cannot find anything that quick. We'll be able to put you alongside me in.
Well, I think
unfortunately.
So we're just resetting everything at the start line. I saw Jake Hill, British touring car star, putting his balaclava and helmet on. Let's just make the point, by the way, that yes, we're talking about this like it's a bit of fun and we're enjoying it. I hope you are too. But the safety standards here are not compromised. So the drivers have helmet, hands device where appropriate. They're all wearing fireproof clothing, and the cars themselves have actually been scrutinised.
This is a BARC meeting, much as any other hill climb meeting would be. And so it's the BARC, British Automobile Racing Club, that are responsible for everything that goes on here. As we see Rory Butcher line up to get ourselves back underway again in the Toyota Corolla BTCC car.
Now, we talked about then and now, and this is now. This is a BTCC car of today. And Rory screams off the line in the Toyota Corolla. Front wheel drive. Now this car's been getting quicker and quicker. Big deal, but not Hill today with the British superbikes up there. Now Rory was keeping an eye on that as well, of course. Underneath the bridge and heading towards Moulcombe.
New generation touring car engine, swiftly to become the old generation touring car engine with the incidence of hybrid. But Rory's gone very deep indeed into Moulcombe and struggling to get the front in. He was very quick off the line. Let's see what he does through the flint wall. Oh, lots of brake lights going on.
Turns well though, that car. Front wheel drive, the front tyres having to do steering and putting the power down. There was just a little confidence lift through Carney's seat there as well. Now climbing the hill. Every time you lift off, that's a mile an hour, 2 miles an hour that you're not going to get back because gravity is against you as well as the clock.
53.89, just a little bit away from what was achieved by Rick Wood in the Holden Commodore. Remember, we're still in that section, that saloon car section. This will be the final car with Jake Hill behind the wheel.
All-wheel drive, all-wheel steer, everything on this car. And this is an R32 GTR, almost mythical status, particularly among Japanese car aficionados. This is the car that they called Godzilla at Bathurst because it ate up everything else that the Aussies could put in front of it.
And he is fastest overall through the first sector of the lap at the moment. The overrun of this thing is just magical as he heads through the flint wall. Is he up overall in the second intermediate? He is by 2.7 seconds.
Jake Hill then coming up to the top of the hill, back into the daylight. It's really dark under those trees and your eyes have to adjust. This is going to be P1, I'm sure. He's gone through 3.3 seconds ahead. Under 49 9 seconds. Magnificent.
Brilliant job by Jake Hill. That is the last car of the saloon section of the shootout. So he has won that section. And the first car jumping in. There we see then. And we haven't actually got Jake Hill arriving at the top of the screen. But
he has won it.
But he has won it. He's certainly in that section for me of the shootout, certainly on our entry list.
So here's the M1 Pro Car, single manufacturer championship, supporting the Grand Prix. The Grand Prix stars that were racing that weekend. This is a mid-engine car, so the engine sits down and behind Sam, and he is pedalling this car quicker and quicker. Oh, have we got a drop or two of rain? Yes, we have. Oh my goodness, this is going to make things interesting. This is a two-wheel drive car. Sam may have to take his chances here as he heads up through Carney's Seat and up towards the top of the hill.
Just a little bit of a shimmy on the exit of Carney's Seat, and look at the mess all over the road. What can Sam Hancock do? He's going to be well away from what Jake Hill achieved a little earlier on. But still a fine effort, and we do have a little bit of rain in the air. I can just see on the outside of our commentary box, John.
Advantage four-wheel drive cars or all-wheel drive cars, and that's what we've got next with the awesome, the unbelievable Ford Mustang Mach-E 1400. This is Westy in that car. That's his helmet. 1400 is 1400 horsepower.
Look at the snap of oversteer, and look how much it's moving around through the exit of turn 2. But this is where it's good, that electric power is going to come into play. It looks like he's got a little bit of help from the electronics as well on his way down to Malcolm Westy. He's not up. Great driver, has driven all over the world in GT1, in prototypes, and in all sorts of GT3 cars, and with incredible experience. But it's not going to be enough here, I don't think, in this Mustang.
Glorious chrome blue paint job for the blue oval. They've managed to somehow combine the styling cues from the classic Ford Mustangs down through the years into a far chunkier vehicle. Huge range on the standard car as well. He comes through in 7th overall. 110 miles an hour though at the top. And remember, that's all electric. And the future for World Rally Championship is hybrid. And this is the first time we've seen the new Ford Puma. And this is the EcoBoost engine with hybrid assistance. Now, it was driven by Adrian Formore earlier in the weekend, but we saw Matthew Wilson earlier on, and yes, it is Matthew Wilson behind the wheel. He's been developing this car for M Sport up in Cumbria, and believe it or not, Alex, this is his first ever competitive run up the hill, and look at the rain.
He's moving around, and you can see the windscreen wipers going on. This car can be driven between stages on electric mode, but it's utilising absolutely all of its power, and the new generation of WRC is here. This is Rally 1, as it will be, and Matthew Wilson getting into it, isn't he, as he runs through the stage, but he's still already behind what Jake Hill has achieved so far. Is the rain going to prevent drivers from improving here? It's getting a little bit heavier, I can see just outside our commentary position here, John.
Stay with the rally orientated cars, but going back to the Pikes Peak special that Tom was talking to in Winnipeg earlier on, the Marcus Grunholm Pikes Peak Challenger, this Ford Fiesta, well, Ford Fiesta in name, I don't think there's much of the original car left. Note the huge aerodynamic devices front and rear. That's because as you go higher and higher up Pikes Peak, the air gets thinner and thinner, and therefore you bleed off the downforce they provide.
Yeah, lose downforce, lose power, but no issues with that, so we'll be able to use all the downforce. And Ian Gwynn getting a bit of wheel spin off the start line. This car built for Marcus Grönholm to tackle Pikes Peak, finishing 2nd overall. And he heads through the front flint wall.
I think it's getting slippery there now. I've seen a few people just dabbing their brakes, looking for where the grip is, and coming through Carney's Seat as well. Big overrun, turned up to 11, that one, and shaves the hay bales on the left-hand side through the final corner. And I tell you what, under 55 seconds, Alex, that is not hanging about.
I wonder if it dumped more fuel than it used on the way, on each gear shift on the way up the hill.
Do you think he's got some kind of afterburner on that and it's trying to help? Now, here's an interesting car, because this was a placeholder, in effect, for a couple of years before the Ford Focus WRC came out. And as such, it's become an Escort and a Ford legend. Anthony Reid is driving this, the affable Scotsman who's been around for far longer than he would like me to remind everybody. In the Repsol colours of the King of Spain, Carlos Sainz, and Luis Moya, his co-driver. And Anthony has been quick this weekend.
Certainly has. Another 4-cylinder turbo with active 4-wheel drive should be good in these conditions. 50 cars were built. How many remain? We don't know, but it's an incredibly valuable car, once driven by Carlos Sainz, now driven incredibly ably by Anthony Reid, who's getting on with it here.
And by the way, that's Carlos Sainz Senior, for those of you who think of Carlos Sainz as a Formula 1 driver. That's his dad, and a smashing guy as well. Across the line. Oh, that's a great time for Anthony Reid, and that's, I think, the quickest of the rally cars, 51.62.
Precious timed away on Jake Hill as he stands at the top. This is the Praga R1 4-cylinder, 365 brake horsepower and 643 kilos, but 1-2 wheel drive could be difficult in the early stages here.
Alex Jirasek was balked a little bit by Adrian Formore earlier on in the weekend, and therefore didn't get the qualifying run that he wanted. I think he was a bit wound up by that. Under the bridge and heading towards Morecambe then. Watch for the intermediate time. 22. He's there or thereabout, and this car is nimble.
Is that another car that's on slicks, John?
I think he is on slicks. I think he's been down there. He won't have had a chance to change them, will he?
Certainly not. He's really, as you say, really didn't get a feel for how quick his car could go. Foremost,
danger point here.
Certainly is.
Where it's slicky. Yeah, a bit slidey and slippy. A little bit of a feather there. He wasn't flat through the final corner. Look at the time. He's dropped time in the second intermediate. So Jake Hill survives another car going through, and he knows he's on camera as well.
Here's the spice.
This is going to be quick, I reckon.
Car driven by Henri Pescarolo in period 33 times at Le Mans. And Jeremy Smith has been pedalling this extremely fast.
Another Cosworth engined car. Cosworth from up on the edge of the carbon fibre triangle, Northamptonshire.
Slightly up through sector 1.
Yeah, nice. Now remember the time he's trying to beat is a Nissan Skyline. But Jake Hill did have the advantage of 4-wheel drive. This is where it's slippery. This is where getting all those horsepower through the back wheels is going to be difficult. It's close, it's position 1, nearly 2 seconds. My, that finish line came up quickly, the punch out of the final left-hander there.
It's really the weight. You can see the difference in how light those sports cars are.
It's drying out, I think.
Certainly is. But now we've got some GT3 cars, John, and what an interesting battle. You know, we're talking about Group C era sports cars, plays GT3 of 2021 here.
Well, not even a GT3 car, but because this is the spiritual successor in some ways to the M1 Pro car, because this is the Super Cup and the Carrera Cup car for a new era. On the grass for Harry King with the Michelin tyres, scrambling for grip. The new Type 992 body shell in the Porsche 911. He looks up the front end and just managed to get it to turn in to Morecambe. Over 500 horsepower, 4-litre normally aspirated flat 6 engine, and Harry has really taken to this.
And it's just so dark through these final 2 chicanes. He's slightly down. Can he find anything through the final stretch? Let's see if he's flat through the last part, almost as he grazes the hay bales, comes across the line.
Second by half a second. Brilliant. He's gone ahead of the 4-wheel drive car. That is an extraordinary run. Remember, that says GT3 in its title, but it's not a GT3 car, it is a Carrera Cup car, and this has GT3 in its title, but this is a GT Extra.
Certainly is. GT Extra, all the toys and all the McLaren aero bits and all of the McLaren race car driver behind the wheel. Rob Bell, very much Mr. McLaren GT3, has been giving this car hell all weekend. He's been up the top of the timesheets so much throughout the weekend. There's a little rain still on the surface of that McLaren.
He'll still be getting grip though from those tyres once he gets a bit of heat into them. Rob, the older of the two Bell Racing boys from Newcastle, and he's to the flint wall. That was very close indeed. He was well up at the first intermediate, but now he's got to find the grip in the slippiest part of the track, all the way out to the hay bales. That was millimetre perfect, and he ends up on a 45-second run. Let's call it 45 seconds. It's 45.01 if you want to be part of the British Society of Pedants, or is that the Pedantry Society of Britain? Not sure. But Rob Bell from Newcastle in the McLaren, Walking's finest, is there now.
Look at the
Travis
pressure
Pastrana
weighing in on Travis Pastrana. He wants to win this one, doesn't he? They'll be pulling the hay out of the wing mirrors of that McLaren of Rob Bell. Travis Pastrana was 2 tenths quicker than Bell in qualifying. It's been so close in this WRX STI.
This is not an ordinary WRX STI. This has been tuned. This is another hill climb car. It's got all the aero mods. It's got a huge turbocharger. It's got an enormous amount of horsepower.
Thumbs up through the middle sector. Let's see if he's up on the intermediate times. Slightly. It's so close between these two machines.
So Travis Pastrana, eyes wide open. This, the final car in the 2021 hill climb, sideways through the flint wall, and he's dropped. That sideways motion might have just cost him the king of the hill and the fastest time of today. Pastrana, fast on 2 wheels, fast on 4 wheels. How close is he? He's second. Travis Pastrana will not like that, and I guarantee you he will know where he lost that. He will know he lost that at the flint wall.
You almost saw expletives behind the steering wheel. He knows he lost out in the flint wall, but it'll be Rob Bell in the 2021 McLaren 720S GT3X who takes hill climb honours here at Goodwood.
Marvellous stuff. I think he was holding his breath all the way up there, and he's even got a little bit left to do some donuts. Travis Pastrana wins in 21.
Wow, wasn't that fantastic? His eyes out on stalks. And your eyes will be out on stalks for the British Grand Prix next weekend. Can you believe it? It is nearly upon us. Practice 1 at 2 o'clock. The new format means that qualifying will be at 5:25. And that will set the grid for the sprint at 3:35 on the Saturday. And the result of that will determine the grid for the Sunday. 1:30 we're on air, lights out at 3 o'clock. That was drama right to the end, wasn't it, Johnny?
Certainly was.
Thrilling stuff.
Good to see those guys pushing it right to the very end, especially going into this left-hander past us here. Good stuff.
And Rob Bell, impressive stuff in that McLaren.
Yeah, wasn't it just that? I think it was going into this corner. He braked so late. It was on the edge. There seemed to be dust flying up everywhere. So, yeah, I think a good weekend has been had by all.
And your favourite moment?
I think it was just seeing the old Formula 1 cars. They're my favourite, and I still do. Seeing Lando out in the old Senna car. Love that.
It's built the anticipation, I feel, for an epic evening of sports.
Yes.
Because we've got the football. It's a big weekend for British motorsport next weekend, but it's a massive day for England football.
I'm ready to
at
go.
8 o'clock tonight. And here's Red Bull with their little tribute. It's the national anthem played by the engine.
Sports F1. Feel it all.
Sometimes running a business can feel like running a marathon in a desert, through quicksand.